Chapter 1798. It turns out that Sect Master and Hall Master Lu brought these supreme experts to prepare for both sides. Elderly looked at Yang Chen's pale face, and he had a feeling that everything was under control. If you don't deal with it well, it will be a killing move. If you deal with it well, then these supreme experts will be brought back to Chunyang Palace by you to suppress those newly joined small fries. Yang Chen pretended to be pale as he listened. He had to cooperate with Elder Li's teachings and nod in agreement from time to time. He found it funny in his heart. However, since your identity is like this, those supreme experts naturally don't need to come out. After all, they're also from Xiantian's sect. It is not good to be discovered that they are secretly controlling Chunyang Palace. Elderly then explained the reason why Sect Master Wang and Hall Master Lu did not mention this matter. Chunyang Palace should remain as it is. It seems that it has nothing to do with our Xiantian sect. Yang Chun had long thought that Xiantian sect would definitely restrict these experts in Chunyang Palace no matter what. Now that he had obtained this result, it was exactly what Yang Chen wanted. If a large number of Xiantian sect supreme experts really appeared in Chunyang Palace would probably have a hard time in the future. Of course, on the other hand, Yang Chen was able to develop Chunyang Palace to this scale in such a short period of time, without any direct help from Xiantian sect, which was really beyond the expectations of the Xiantian sect higher-ups. Other than showing that Yang Chen's means were brilliant, there was nothing else. Some people would be jealous that Yang Chen relied on Gentle Sound Fairy, Zhou Xianing, to get such a huge force. However, in the eyes of the Xiantian sect's higher-ups, it was clearly Yang Chen's ability and vision. It was not the first day that Granny Tianqin became famous. Why didn't anyone marry her? Don't worry. After this time, Sect Master and Hall Master Lu will no longer doubt you. Seeing that Yang Chen was scared enough, Elderly began to comfort him appropriately. Since you have this identity and know the secrets above, there is no reason for you to betray us. As long as you do your best in the future, there will be plenty of benefits for you. Yes, Grandmaster. Yang Chen seemed to have just recovered from the shock, and his face was much calmer. Holding the jade slip that Elderly had given him that recorded the map of the trial ground, he didn't know what to say. Cultivate wholeheartedly. There is no need to think about anything else. Elderly casually handed over a Chinquan bag. The things inside are enough for you to cultivate until you reach the Earth Immortal realm. You don't need to waste your energy on those trivial matters. This was the real benefit. After being slapped in the face, one would naturally have to give a carrot. This was the method of controlling the subordinates of those in a superior position, and it was basically the same. Next, Elderly asked some questions about Yang Chen's cultivation. After some guidance, Yang Chen was completely calm, at least in the eyes of Elderly. Next, Elderly asked some questions about Yang Chen's cultivation. After some advice, Yang Chen calmed down completely, at least in Elderly's eyes. Since Yang Chen had returned to normal, he naturally had to show some wise thinking, so this question was raised in time. In addition to the lack of demonic energy, those beasts appear and disappear mysteriously. Isn't it very abnormal that they haven't been able to find the place where they appear? Even in the spiritual world, Elderly knew very well about the demon continent. Especially after the major sect obtained the ancient books of the Zhao family manor, he knew a lot of secrets. The similarities between the trial ground and the demon continent had already been discovered and proposed, but no definite evidence had been found for the time being. Moreover, this was an excellent place for disciples to gain experience. So, the major sect that controlled this place only monitored closely and sent masters to patrol, but did not close the trial ground. After Elderly said this, Yang Chen didn't say anything more. Anyway, he just said it. If he could provoke the major sect to target the Zhao family again, it would be best. If it didn't work, there was no loss for Yang Chen. Speaking of the Zhao family, there have been a lot of movements recently. The trial ground naturally brought the Zhao family out, and Elderly didn't hide much from Yang Chen. He began to tell Yang Chen some secret news. Last time, several peripheral sects of the Zhao family were destroyed, and the Zhao family lost the game first. Recently, they began to secretly send people to attack, and the sect has lost hundreds of disciples. Annoying, Yang Chun said hatefully, but he was nodding in his heart. The Zhao family finally began to fight back, which was a good sign. He was not afraid that the Zhao family would not move, but he was afraid that they would still hide, then he wouldn't be able to find any clues. Have you caught a few and asked about the whereabouts of the Zhao family? Yang Chen asked. I caught a lot, but I couldn't ask any of them. Elderly was a little resentful when he talked about this. The Zhao family is too mysterious. Those who attacked were all from the side branches, and none of them were from the main branch. They don't even know where the Zhao family is. Grandmaster, is it possible that the Zhao family's location is always moving, just like in the mortal world? Yang Chen saw that it was about time, so he spoke of his guess in a timely manner. This was what the Zhao family supreme expert said last time, so it shouldn't be wrong, right? No one in the mysterious heaven sect had thought of this, or rather, they didn't think in this direction at all. In the hearts of the people of the major sects, since they had opened the mountain and set up the cabinet, they must occupy a piece of land in a dignified manner. Didn't they see the pure Yang Palace, which had no foundation in the spiritual world, spend a lot of money to get a piece of land for the sect? They never thought that the other party might not have a fixed territory at all, but a moving cave. That makes sense. Go back and let the disciples search in this direction. Elder Li's eyes also lit up as he thought of the key point. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. Elder Li couldn't sit still anymore and wished he could immediately return to the sect to make arrangements. He didn't delay any longer and said to Yang Chun, I'll go back and make arrangements immediately. If we find it, you'll get the credit. The threat of the Zhao family was so great that the major sect couldn't let go of such a poisonous snake hiding in the dark. If the mysterious heaven sect could be the first to find the whereabouts of the Zhao family, it would definitely be a good thing for the mysterious heaven sect. Therefore, Elder Li couldn't care about anything else. He got up and left. Stay here and train with peace of mind. I'll handle the matters outside. Don't worry about Chunyang Palace. When Elder Li said this, it was to give Yang Chun a reassuring pill, and then hurriedly packed up the array and quickly left. Yang Chun was finally able to start his own trial. After making sure that no one was watching him, Yang Chun began to rush toward the center of the trial ground. With the map given by the mysterious heaven sect, it was a bit easier. Yang Chun really wanted to know what was there. Chapter 1799. Cha! Yang Chun raised his hand, and the blade fell. A huge monster head flew high, and the fishy blood sprayed high, dyeing a large area around it blood red. Boom! The body of the monster fell heavily to the ground, crushing countless trees, and even the ground was shaken a few times. The earth dragon on Yang Chen's wrist opened its mouth, and the body of the monster, along with a large piece of land around it, was swallowed by the earth dragon. Although the cultivation of this peak human immortal monster was not particularly high, its flesh and blood were also a great supplement for the earth dragon and could not be wasted. This was already a year after Yang Chun entered the trial land. It turned out that Yang Chun thought that this place could still be like the land of demons in the mortal world, sneaking into the depths of the core, but unexpectedly, it was all wrong, and he could only temporarily participate in the process of hunting monsters. The monster in the trial land had amazing senses. Even with Yang Chen's cultivation base, relying on the cultivation base of the three purities secret art, he may be able to hide from the senses of these monsters at a distance of 50 miles, but within a close distance of 50 miles, he would definitely be discovered. It was as if there was an invisible force in this place that could increase the senses of the monsters, and he couldn't escape in any case. The monster was not only more perceptive than humans, but their strength had also been greatly enhanced. It seemed that the monsters of the same cultivation base were at least 2 small realms stronger than ordinary cultivators. Obviously, there was a mysterious force that caused this situation to happen. From this point of view, the demon continent in the mortal world was very similar to this place. The demon continent was because of the devil chi, but what was here? Monster chi? There was indeed some faint monster chi in the surrounding environment, but it was a bit too much to say that this was a kind of monster chi. These auras were obviously released by those monsters, not the influence of the outside world. The monsters here were very strong, and their brains were also very smart. In addition to these, they were irritable and bloodthirsty. No wonder they had to use a formation to surround them. If these monsters were allowed to escape outside, it would definitely be a disaster for the spiritual world. Wasn't the demonic tribulation of the spiritual world in his previous life caused by the monsters? As for the epicenter of the explosion, even though he did not know the exact location, he was certain that it was in the trial grounds. Li Cheng suspected that this was the core of the Zhao family's array formation. Perhaps the demonic tribulation in the spirit realm was caused by the Zhao family. If that was the case, Yangchen wasn't in a hurry to reveal the secret here. According to the memories of his previous life, there were still several hundred years before the demonic tribulation broke out. In addition, Yang Chun had already unlocked the seals of the other 9 locations. Even if the demonic tribulation broke out again, it would not be as powerful as it was in his previous life. It was also for this reason that Yang Chun wanted to learn more about these demonic beasts. So, Yang Chun did not directly enter the core of the trial grounds. Instead, he chose to familiarize himself with the trial grounds that were suitable for him. The map of the trial ground that Elder Li of the mysterious Heaven sect had given him only indicated the distribution of supreme mystic immortal level demon beasts. However, that was only around the core of the trial ground. Not even the experts of the mysterious Heaven sect had entered the true core area. From this alone, one could imagine the danger. According to Yang Chen's experience in the demon continent in the mortal world, the strongest demonized demon vine in the core of the demon continent was at the 2nd grade of the Earth Immortal at that time, which was 2 whole realms higher than the Deshang stage realm that could be ascended in the mortal world. If there was no extremely safe plan, Yang Chun would never take risks easily. At this time, Yang Chen seemed to have guessed why Li Cheng took away his sea-pouring jasper cup. If there was the sea-pouring jasper cup to shield his spiritual awareness, perhaps Li Cheng could approach the core of the trial ground without being noticed. If Yang Chen had stronger strength at this time, he didn't need to be at the supreme mystic immortal level. As long as he was at the fairy immortal level, Yang Chen would dare to rush directly to the core of the trial ground to take a look. Unfortunately, Yang Chen was only in the human immortal realm now. He was almost the lowest rookie in the spiritual world. Even if he was strong, he could only train around the earth immortal level demon beasts at most, and he was still far from the core. It was not that there was no way to get in, but the price to be paid was likely to outweigh the gains. The Earth Dragon was born with a kind of magical ability to conceal spiritual awareness. As long as Yang Chun let the Earth Dragon make a move, he could also enter the core edge marked by the Xintian Gate without being noticed. Even so, it was only limited to sneaking in, and he couldn't make any extra movements at all. Once discovered, with the ferocity of the demon beasts that were generally 2 small realms stronger than the cultivators of the same level, the Earth Dragon might not be able to retreat unscathed, and the same was true for Yang Chun. The safest way was to train on the one hand and wait for the news of Li Cheng on the other. Although Big Brother Li Cheng was also only a human immortal, Yang Chun firmly believed that Big Brother Li Cheng must have a way. Over the past year, Yang Chun didn't know how many demon beasts he had killed, and he would encounter dozens of them every day. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they would either run away or try their best to kill one to achieve the purpose of training, and they couldn't be rash. Unfortunately, these unfortunate demon beasts encountered Yang Chun, a monster that couldn't be judged by common sense. Even if the Earth Dragon didn't make a move, Yang Chun could use the immortal beheading saber and the interspatial bracelet he obtained from the Dragon Palace. Basically, no demon beast could escape. In fact, at any time, the real danger was not the demon beasts, nor the demonic creatures, but the cultivators like you. Whether it was the demon beasts or the demonic creatures, you clearly understood that they were enemies, and you were born to be on guard against them. However, cultivators were not like this. Many people who appear to be friendly and amiable were actually poisonous snakes hiding under their friendly appearances. Among the cultivators who trained here, at least 30% of the people who died did not die under the claws and teeth of the demon beasts. Of course, This was not a problem for Yang Chun, who had already lived a life. No matter how well the other party's killing intent was hidden, it couldn't escape the perception of Yang Chun. With the almost invincible Dragon Clan Golden Bell and the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, Yang Chun was also invincible without using the Earth Dragon. The main reason why Yang Chun was willing to stay in this area was that Yang Chun found two cultivators who didn't belong to the major sect. The Land of Trials was a blessed land that was opened by the major sects for their own disciples to gain experience through life and death. After training here for dozens or even hundreds of years, it would bring indescribable benefits to their future cultivation path. However, the major sect was not a charity. Things that were good for their disciples would not be shared by outsiders. Didn't Yang Chun use the price of the perching god jade to get the promise from the major sect and get the qualification to enter the trial ground? How did these cultivators who didn't belong to the major sect come in? Chapter 1800. Discovering that these two were not cultivators from any of the major sects was also a coincidence. Generally speaking, Yang Chun still adhered to the principle of if others don't offend me, I won't offend them. As long as the other party did not have any ideas on him, then he would not take the initiative to attack. After all, everyone was a cultivator, and there were enough opponents here to gain experience. Yang Chun also did not lack the other party's trifling possessions. Letting a person who was even richer than a local tyrant covet the possessions of a few poor ghosts was simply too ridiculous. However, just because Yang Chun was like this did not mean that all cultivators would be like this. Wealth could move people's hearts, and the world of cultivators was no exception. However, none of the guys who attacked him would have thought that a world-famous alchemist, whose cultivation was much lower than theirs, would actually be so stubborn. A total of more than 20 guys who encountered him had thoughts that they shouldn't have. Now, their corpses had been devoured by the Earth Dragon, and their cosmos bags had fallen into Yang Chun's hands. From these things, Yang Chun discovered the origins of each person. There were cultivators from all the major sects, demons, but there were two people who clearly came from a large rogue cultivator alliance. The major sects controlled the trial grounds, but did not leave a spot for the rogue cultivator alliance. As such, it was very suspicious how these two fellows came in. Of course, what made Yang Chun suspicious the most was not that they attacked Yang Chun, but when they found out that they were not a match for Yang Chun, they immediately detonated themselves to heavily injure Yang Chun. Wanting to heavily injure Yang Chun was a joke, but Yang Chun was not able to get any information from their mouths. As for the identity of these two, from the items they left behind, it seemed that they were from the rogue cultivator alliance called Three River Alliance, but Yang Chun was not completely sure. After making this unexpected discovery, Yang Chun decided to stay within the area to see if any other cultivators would take the initiative to attack him. It would be for the best if one or two cultivators who were not from the major sect could appear. That would give Yang Chun more clues. It was unknown if it was due to bad luck or if some of his disciples had died here. But for a long time, at least a few months, Yang Chun did not see any other cultivators appear here. Only one or two of them were from the Tao sect. They knew Master Yang Chun, and they fawned over Yang Chun in every possible way. They had no intention of making a move, so Yang Chun couldn't find any clues even if he wanted to. After training in this area for another year, Yang Chun finally gave up and stopped waiting in vain. It has been 2 years since he came to the trial ground. Yang Chun has basically seen and was familiar with most of the monster beasts. Even if he entered a deeper area, it was only the difference in strength of the monster beasts. It would not let Yang Chun have an accident because he was not familiar with the monster beasts. This was one of the reasons why Yang Chun had been practicing in this area. The core of the trial ground was extremely dangerous. If he was not familiar with the habits of these monster beasts, he would go in rashly. Even if he just sneaked in carefully and did nothing, it would still be a narrow escape. Now that he had experienced 2 years of familiarity, it was completely different. At least Yang Chun could ensure that his spiritual awareness threads, which were cultivated by the 3 Purity secret art, could find the enemy one step earlier and then carry out different responses to the type of monster beasts. The way to enter deeper areas was very simple. The Earth Dragon was born with the instinct of concealment. Even if it was a master of the same level, it could not be found in a short time, even if it was a spiritual awareness exploration. Yang Chun jumped directly into the mouth of the Earth Dragon and let the Earth Dragon shrink into a small earthworm with the thickness of a finger, and then drilled into the ground. Basically, in the active area of the Earth Immortal level monster beasts, Yang Chun could completely ignore it and directly let the Earth Dragon go all the way in a straight line. The Earth Dragon of the Supreme Mystic Immortal level, deep underground, could still be found by the Earth Immortal level monster beasts. Then the Earth Dragon could directly kill itself. However, when it came to the place where the Heaven Immortal level monster beasts were entrenched, the situation was different. He didn't know why these monster beasts were stimulated, but their spiritual awareness was amazingly sensitive. They were obviously only at the high stage of the Heaven Immortal, but the spiritual awareness of some monster beasts had already reached the level of the middle stage of the Supreme Mystic Immortal, which made people extremely envious of the cultivation method of these guys. Of course, those who envied their spiritual awareness cultivation method would never include Yang Chun. Yang Chun's current spiritual awareness was 2 realms higher than his own spiritual power cultivation. The strength of the 3 Purity secret art was far from what a few different monster beasts could compare with. Yang Chun had been underground, relying on the spiritual awareness threads he released to explore the environment. The concentration of spiritual power in this area had increased compared to when he first entered the trial ground, and the monster beasts inside were getting stronger and stronger. When Yang Chun saw through the spiritual awareness threads underground, a monster beast at the early stage of the Heaven Immortal level easily cut an expert of an unknown sect with his life source magic weapon and protective armor directly into 2 pieces. Yang Chun understood that in this area, let alone a human immortal level junior like himself, even a supreme mystic immortal had to be careful to live with his tail between his legs. Even if Yang Chun had the Earth Dragon, even if he had the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, it was the same. After all, Yang Chun has not experienced the human immortal world's Earth Immortal Tribulation and the Heaven Immortal Tribulation. No matter how strong his body was, it was not as sharp as the claws and teeth of the monster beasts. It was better to find what he wanted to find secretly. Never provoke any monster here. Carefully letting the Earth Dragon continue to stay underground, and even when a little deeper, Yang Chun let the Earth Dragon continue to move forward. Even so, the speed of moving forward was a lot slower. Originally, they could travel thousands of miles in a day, but now they could sneak hundreds of miles in a day without being discovered. This was already a tacit understanding between Yang Chun and the Earth Dragon. This was when they just entered the Heaven Immortal monster area. When they entered the advanced Heaven Immortal and peak Heaven Immortal monster area, Yang Chun could almost be described as shocked. Every time he wanted to move forward, he had to consider how to avoid the scanning of the huge divine sense of the surrounding demonic beasts. The arduous process was comparable to a sheep taking a stroll in a pack of wolves. If any of the wolves found something wrong, the sheep might be consigned to eternal damnation. It took Yang Chun a full 2 years to reach the Fairy Immortal area alone, and only then did he reach the edge of the distribution area of the peak Fairy Immortal monster. If he went further in, it should be the area of Supreme Mystic Immortal monster activity. It was also a more dangerous area where he could die at any time. Even at a place hundreds of miles deep underground, Yang Chun could feel the crazy scanning of a tyrannical spiritual awareness. While there was a lingering fear, Yang Chun did not give up at all. He still controlled the Earth Dragon to move forward bit by bit, hoping to see what was in front of him. Suddenly, the body of the Earth Dragon seemed to suddenly hit a barrier. It shook and stopped. Yang Chun's spiritual awareness thread was also sent out at the same time. At that moment, Yang Chun's face showed joy. It was a barrier of a sealing formation. There was no mistake. Chapter 1801. To deal with this kind of sealing formation, Yang Chun's experience was not a little bit. The location recorded in the 9 ancient zither, the method of unlocking the seal was the same. In the formation of this trial ground, Since elder brother Li Cheng inferred that it was related to the nine, then the solution should be the same. Not only elder brother Li Cheng's judgment, but Yang Qin's own feeling was the same. Although he did not directly use a large amount of spiritual awareness to explore, for fear of alarming the surrounding monsters, but just a few strands of spiritual awareness gave him feedback that the pattern of this seal should be the same as the other 9 places. According to normal logic, to unlock this seal, it was the same way as long as a large amount of input of spiritual awareness could be done. Unfortunately, neither the Murong sisters nor Zhou Xianying were around. Otherwise, if he let them do it, maybe he could have one more bodyguard. When unsealing the Earth Dragon, Yang Chun had done this kind of sneaky output of spiritual awareness from the periphery without attracting the attention of the masters inside. Now, although there were strong enemies around, it was not impossible to use the same method. Before Yang Chun started, he still had some concerns. He believed that elder brother Li Cheng must have come here a lot of time ahead of him. If elder brother Li Cheng was unlocking the seal, then Yang Chen's spiritual awareness would inevitably cause an impact. It was because of this worry that Yang Chun did not start immediately, but observed quietly for the time being and determined that it would not affect elder brother Li Cheng. Yang Chun would start. This observation made Yang Chun break out in a cold sweat. The surrounding monsters at the peak of the fairy immortal realm, and even the stronger monsters that could faintly reveal their aura in the seal formation, did not use their spiritual awareness to touch this seal formation. Even the most powerful masters would carefully avoid the area of the seal formation when they used their spiritual awareness to explore the surrounding situation. Yang Chun could even sense that the extremely powerful divine senses were all broken. When they were still several meters away from the sealing formation, they would automatically avoid it, not daring to casually extend their divine senses across the boundary. This strange situation directly made Yang Chen's heart suddenly creeped out. Under the fright, he no longer dared to hesitate and quickly retracted his spiritual awareness that had been placed on the seal formation. Fortunately, the spiritual awareness threads emitted by the 3 purities secret art that he cultivated were thin enough to not trigger any unknown protection. Otherwise, he wouldn't know how he died. This sealing formation seemed to be somewhat different. It was hidden dozens of kilometers underground. If it was only on the surface, it wouldn't be triggered at all if one was careful. Of course, they wouldn't have discovered it. But how did those heaven immortal level beasts know that there was a formation here, but they didn't dare to touch it? When he was puzzled, a bird-shaped monster flying in the sky and scrupulously emitted its spiritual awareness. Relying on its speed, it flew high and arrogantly flew out from a deeper area. His divine sense, which had almost condensed into a solid substance, plowed through this area and also crossed the sealing formation. When this spiritual awareness fell on the spiritual awareness threads that Yang Chen sent out, Yang Chun could instantly conclude that this guy's strength was definitely beyond the 6th grade of Xian Immortal, and even a bit stronger than the Earth Dragon. The arrogant big bird's spiritual awareness swept across, and almost all the monsters at the peak of the fairy immortal realm bowed their heads and didn't dare to move. When faced with such a situation, the large bird in the sky seemed to be extremely satisfied, but it completely didn't notice that the eyes of the demon beast below that were suppressed by its divine sense didn't flash with submission or fear, but a type of gloating gaze. Yang Chun was now hiding in the mouth of the Earth Dragon, for which a large number of spiritual awareness threads were emitted, scattered in all directions, carefully avoiding those powerful monsters and observing the situation everywhere. This big bird obviously didn't hide its consciousness, and Yang Chen saw it. After flapping its wings a few times, the big bird in the air chirped happily, as if it was announcing its territory. It paused in the air for a while, and then flew in another direction, probably to do the same thing. Until now, Yang Chun didn't find any reaction from the formation. Could it be that his estimation was wrong? But apart from that arrogant big bird, the other monstrous beasts, whether they were inside or outside, did not dare to touch the formation with their divine sense. Moreover, under the pressure of that big bird monstrous beast, all the monstrous beasts had already withdrawn their divine sense. Could it be that they were really just surrendering? Just when Yang Chun thought that his judgment was wrong, a sudden change occurred. The sealing formation, which was close at hand, suddenly released a tyrannical and unparalleled suction force, firmly grasping the consciousness of the big bird demonic beast in the sky. The huge suction force directly dragged the big bird in the sky to the ground. At this moment, the 6th grade Xian Immortal or above monster didn't have the strength to struggle at all, or it could be said that it couldn't break free from the suction force at all and was directly pulled to the ground, unable to even raise its head. The spiritual awareness that seemed to be material just now was forcibly dragged out of the big bird's sea of consciousness by this strong suction force, and was unreasonably absorbed into the formation. Along the way, there was even no need to use the spiritual awareness threads. The vibration brought by the big bird's own spiritual awareness allowed Yang Chun to directly know what was going on by the feeling of his skin. A shrill scream came out from the mouth of the huge bird demonic beast, but it only lasted for a short moment, and then there was no more sound. The divine sense also disappeared without a trace, and the surroundings were eerily quiet, without the slightest sound. After a long time, a few celestial immortal spiritual awareness swept over again, and they still avoided the area of the seal formation as usual. At this moment, Yang Chen secretly released the spiritual awareness threads again and carefully probed what was going on. A strand of divine sense descended onto the corpse of the large bird demon beast that had started to be eaten by a few powerful demon beasts. The corpse had practically become a dried corpse that had all its flesh and blood essence sucked dry. If it wasn't for the fact that it was a 6th-stage mysterious immortal, these demon beasts probably wouldn't even care about what was left of it. In a short period of a few breaths of time, not to mention the entire divine sense of a demon beast at the 6th rank of the mysterious immortal realm had been completely absorbed. Even its flesh, blood, and essence had been sucked dry. Merely thinking about it caused a chill to run down one's spine. If Yang Chun rashly took the initiative to explore with his spiritual awareness, he might end up worse than this guy. After all, even if Yang Chun had refined the spiritual awareness of a perfected golden immortal, he couldn't release it as fast as a 6th grade Xian immortal demonic beast. With Yang Chen's current spiritual awareness that was only at the 3rd grade of celestial immortal, it would only take a breath of time for Yang Chun to become a dry corpse. Chapter 1802. Even though Yang Chun had walked on the line of death more than once or twice in his previous life, he was still shocked and broke out in a cold sweat this time. He took back all the spiritual awareness threads and stayed in the mouth of the earth dragon. Yang Chen did not dare to move for a long time, just to calm down. You don't want to live? Dare to come here like this? Just when Yang Chun was still sweating and calming down, a familiar voice suddenly came to his ear. The sudden movement almost scared Yang Chun out of the mouth of the earth dragon. Fortunately, the experience of 2 lives made him calm himself down. The voice was from an acquaintance, and it was not directly sounded, but transmitted through the spiritual awareness. It was big brother Li Cheng. Yang Chen's heart settled down instantly. Li Cheng seemed to have such a magic that could make people calm down in an instant. He took the initiative to send out a thread of spiritual awareness and connected it with Li Cheng's equally fine spiritual awareness. Yang Chen sent out a thought without scruples. Big brother, you really scared me. Reckless. Li Cheng's serious criticism mercilessly rushed into Yang Chen's ears. Where do you think this is? I have to carefully rely on the sea jasper cup to come in, and you dare to be so bold? Do you know what will happen if your spiritual awareness stays on that seal for a while? There was really no need for Li Cheng to explain this question. The ending of the big bird monster that surpassed the 6th grade of Xian Immortal had clearly told Yang Chen the answer. At the same time, Li Cheng's question also indirectly explained why the big bird monstrous beast was not immediately attacked by the formation after its unscrupulous spiritual sense exploration. It turned out that this formation would only be activated after a certain period of contact. Fortunately, your spiritual awareness threads are thin enough, and you haven't triggered the restriction for such a long time. In the tone of Big Brother Li Cheng, There was also a kind of joy like surviving a disaster. Next time you are so reckless, it's better to cut your own neck with a knife so that you don't have to suffer before you die. Yang Chun obediently accepted the reprimand and didn't mean to talk back at all. Big Brother Li Cheng was definitely doing this for his own good. If he didn't know what was good for him, then he would be a fool. A barrier quickly wrapped around the Earth Dragon. Yang Chun controlled the Earth Dragon to remain motionless and let the barrier work. The familiar breath tells him that this is the Sea Jasper Cup, and entering it is really safe. Big Brother, are you nearby? Yang Chun finally saw Li Cheng's face. In the sea-pouring Jasper Cup, Yang Chun and Li Cheng could talk with confidence without worrying about being discovered by the monsters outside. I have been studying here for a long time. Fortunately, it was not far from here, and I noticed the spiritual sense threads that you released. Otherwise, I would not have known that you were here. Li Cheng explained casually, and then directly laughed and scolded. Why don't you hurry up and take out the wine? What are you waiting for? It was absolutely safe here, and Yang Chun didn't have that kind of careful worry. He hurriedly threw out a few jars of jade dragon wine, and let a Zhu and a Bai grab a bunch of ginseng, Ganoderma lucidum, vermilion fruit, and so on, and put them on a jade plate as a wine dish. The two brothers sat at the table and chatted while drinking. As Li Cheng said, after he came in at the beginning, he didn't delay much time and came here directly. After discovering this huge seal formation, he knew that he should have found the right place. However, the power of the formation made Li Cheng a little unexpected. In the case of no way to directly crack it, he could only study along the edge of the formation bit by bit, waiting for the opportunity to find a way to unlock the seal formation. Even with Li Cheng's knowledge and ability, this formation is still like a mouse pulling a turtle. This made Yang Chun feel surprised. Even Big Brother Li Cheng was helpless against the formation. Fortunately, he reacted fast enough, otherwise he could only ask Big Brother Li Cheng to help collect the corpse. This formation is too powerful. After tens of thousands of years, or even longer accumulation, it is no longer something that ordinary masters can deal with. In the face of this kind of trouble that almost can't be solved by manpower, Li Cheng had to admit defeat for the time being. The two were silent. Even Li Cheng admitted that he couldn't do it. Then Yang Chun would definitely be sending food. How could they solve the situation in front of them? What is inside the formation? After a long time, Yang Chun asked. Stronger demonic beasts and an unknown area. Li Cheng replied dejectedly. It seemed that this formation had dealt a heavy blow to him. Unknown area? Yang Chun asked. Even Li Cheng doesn't know what that area is. For the time being, it is judged to be the source of the monster, but as for what is inside, it is still uncertain, so there's no way to go in. Li Cheng glanced at Yang Chun and seemed to be puzzled by Yang Chen's eyes. Why are you looking at me like this? If there's information in the spiritual realm that you and I can't solve, then there must be a problem with this formation. Yang Chun suddenly thought about it. After saying that, he frowned. This sentence was very arrogant, but it made Li Cheng feel very comfortable when he heard it. Li Cheng knew that Yang Chun valued him very much, but Li Cheng didn't know that there was actually such a high regard. Maybe we are thinking in the wrong direction. After Yang Chun thought for a while, he asked with a little uncertainty, Big Brother, how do you know that this formation will have a problem if spiritual awareness explores it for a long time? In the past few years, I have seen no less than 10 arrogant monsters turned into dried corpses. Although Li Cheng was proud in his heart, he still answered Yang Chun in a bad tone. This is not right. After hearing it, Yang Chun immediately said resolutely, What did you find? Li Cheng was also excited. One person is better than two. It has been said for thousands of years. He might have been stuck in a dead end. Maybe Yang Chun could solve the problem. In less than 10 years, there are almost 10 Xian Immortal level monster died here, on average one a year. Yang Chun organized his words and said, even if one every 2 years after so many years, how many should there be in total? This was actually not a question, but a prelude to the question. Li Cheng was also smart not to answer and waited to hear the rest. No matter how strong that seal formation is, is 10 times stronger than the 9 formations outside. But over the years, so many Xian immortal monsters' spiritual awareness has been absorbed, and this formation doesn't show any signs of breaking. After Yang Chen said this, he slapped the table with certainty. This is not normal. It is using our inertial thinking to mislead us. This is definitely a trap. Trap. Li Cheng couldn't understand it because he was trapped in this situation, so he frowned and asked, "The area that you can't enter is the bait." Yang Chun replied with certainty. Chapter 1803. There was a foggy area that they couldn't enter, and it was definitely the best way to attract people. Everyone was curious, and cultivators were no exception. As long as there was a target that people couldn't help but want to spy on, then the trap could be said to be half successful. If there was a powerful cage or killing array, basically other than the prey, the trap would be ready. Obviously, the previously Chung and the current Yang Chun were the prey that this trap was waiting for. But there were more people who knew. Li Cheng also fell silent and began to think about this possibility. It was undeniable that the ceiling array in front of them seemed to be the same as the previous ones. Even if it wasn't a trap, it definitely wasn't the same as before. Yang Chun accompanied Li Cheng in silence. His mind was also tumbling as he recalled the things that happened in his previous life. The demonic tribulation of the spiritual realm in his previous life should have started from the trial ground, but Yang Chen didn't know exactly where it started, and there seemed to be only a few people who knew. It was said that when it started, all the disciples of the major sect who were training in the trial ground had died in there, and there was no news at all. Big brother, when the time comes and the array is activated, how should we break the ceiling array around the trial ground? In terms of the Tao of array, Yang Chun at most had some array diagrams and simple principles in his memory, but he didn't really study much. Li Cheng had always shown himself to be an expert in array, so it was a good time to ask him for advice. The array outside? Simple. Li Cheng was thinking about the ceiling array inside, and when he heard Yang Chen's question, he replied casually, "At most 200 to 300 demonic beasts at the peak of Xian Immortal level can break it. If there is a golden Immortal expert, it will be even easier. There should be more than this number of Xian Immortal demonic beasts that went out for so many years, right?" Yang Chun said thoughtfully. After all, only a portion of the Xian Immortal demonic beasts were sucked dry by the ceiling array. At least half of the Xian Immortal demonic beasts left safely, and Li Cheng had seen more than 10 of them in these years. Li Cheng nodded subconsciously when he heard Yang Chen's words, but he immediately realized that something was wrong. Could it be that so many Xian Immortal demonic beasts have been annihilated by the disciples of the various sect? That's a Xian Immortal expert. It's hard to say if there are so many Xian Immortal experts in all the major sect. Then, where did these Xian Immortal demonic beasts go? Not only did they not go out to harm the trial disciples, but they were also not killed. The most amazing thing was that the trial disciples, and even the Earth Immortal and Human Immortal trial beasts were not affected. This made people wonder if those beasts had directly ascended to immortality. However, all these years, at least Li Cheng had not felt the movement of demonic beasts ascending more than a few times. It was not that there were none, but it was pitifully rare. Could it be that these guys were going to kill each other after they got out, and then the victor would ascend? This was obviously impossible, since there were no such possibilities, and the outermost formation could not withstand the collective attack of thousands of Xian Immortal demon beasts, but the formation still existed steadily. There must be some inside story or unknown reason behind it. There's something wrong with the outermost formation. Li Cheng could not see clearly because he was closely involved. After Yang Chen's analysis and guidance, he immediately realized where the problem was. At first, Yang Chen only had a simple suspicion. Now, with Li Cheng's judgment, both of them understood a little. The ancestor of the Zhao family was indeed an expert at playing tricks. He could calculate that someone might discover the secret of the core of the trial ground, so he deliberately set up a trap here. Since it was a trial ground, even if the Grand Supreme Mystic Immortal experts of the major sect died here, it was just a failure. At most, the major sect would instruct their disciples not to go near this place. The real secret would be preserved because of this huge bait that attracted everyone's attention. Even if they were not fooled by the ceiling formation, once they saw an inaccessible area, they would always be unable to suppress their curiosity and think of ways to go in and find out what was going on. Even someone like Li Cheng was firmly attracted by the area that could not be entered for the time being. He racked his brains to think of all kinds of ways to enter without making any big moves. If it weren't for Yang Chen's arrival, maybe Li Cheng would persist for a few more years and would be forced to enter because of exhaustion of patience. At that time, it would definitely be a huge movement. Now that it was determined that this was a huge trap, both of them had plans to turn back. However, Yang Chen still had some regrets. In the end, he braced himself and asked big brother Li Cheng. Under the cover of the sea-pouring jasper cup, he looked at all the areas that could be entered. Since he was here, even if it was a trap, he had to see what it looked like, right? For this request, Li Cheng did not have any refusal. Even the sea jasper cup was Yang Chen's. It would not take too long to take him to see it. With Li Cheng, a super master who has been studying here for several years, Yang Chen basically didn't have to worry about the risk of being discovered. He soon entered the circle of the ceiling formation and saw many incomprehensible monsters. He also saw the mysterious area that Li Cheng couldn't enter. It was said that he couldn't get in. In fact, it was not that Li Cheng had no way, but there was no way to enter quietly for a while. It was not impossible to really crack it by force, but it would definitely cause a great shock to the entire trial land, which was inconsistent with the previous plan. Blocking the way of the two was also a formation barrier, which looked similar to the Demon Seal formation in the mortal world, but it was many times more powerful than the Demon Seal formation, and it added a lot of things that couldn't be understood for a while. There was no problem with the exploration of spiritual awareness, but it was blocked outside this solid formation. Why don't you try using the Immortal Beheading Blade and Xiao Tian? Yang Chen showed the Immortal Beheading Blade and asked Li Cheng. The Immortal Beheading Blade had refined the entrance of the Immortal Beheading stage and the core of the Demon Continent. With the buff of Xiao Tian, it could almost be said to be invincible. Maybe it could cut a part of this formation. No, a little attack will cause a lot of movement. Li Cheng shook his head directly, as if afraid that Yang Chen didn't believe it. He threw out a mass of things and threw it far away at the barrier of the formation. Yang Chen saw clearly that the mass of things was clearly a Xian Immortal level monster. He didn't know when it was captured by Li Cheng, but it couldn't move. It could only watch itself hit the barrier. Boom! There was a violent explosion and vibration, and the dazzling light could almost blind people's eyes. In just an instant, the Xian Immortal level monster turned into a mass of ashes and dissipated with the wind, leaving no bones. Chapter 1804. The commotion here directly attracted countless probing divine senses. Without waiting for Yang Chen to react, Li Cheng had already controlled the sea-pouring jasper cup to dive into the ground, covering up all the sounds. Even under the wrapping of the sea-pouring jasper cup, Yang Chen could still perceive the tyrannical spiritual awareness sweeping over and over again, as if the dozens of miles underground had been excavated hundreds of times, and there was still the noise of those spiritual awareness scraping the sea-pouring jasper cup in his ears. After a while, the silence was slowly restored here, and those spiritual awareness no longer paid attention to this side and quietly dispersed. Only at this moment did Li Cheng control the sea-pouring jasper cup to slowly return to a place not far from the ground. A little aggressive action will cause such a big movement. It's no problem to break the Immortal Beheading Blade, but it's not possible to do it quietly. Li Cheng shook his head. Without Li Cheng saying anything more, Yang Chen knew what the result was. If the two hadn't determined that this was a bait, maybe the two would have joined forces to break this place. Unfortunately, it was just a collision and there was that kind of movement. If they really wanted to break the formation, they didn't know what kind of earth-shaking it would be. It was estimated that all the Xian immortal monsters in the trial ground would be attracted. For such a reason, Yang Chen and Li Cheng could only give up again. Li Cheng was about to control the sea-pouring jasper cup to leave. Yang Chen's heart suddenly moved and stopped Li Cheng. Not knowing what Yang Chen was going to do, Li Cheng stopped in doubt and looked at Yang Chun. Yang Chun didn't explain and directly took out something from the merit ring and handed it to Li Cheng. Big brother, try this. Li Cheng looked at the miniature version of the villa in his hand and asked in confusion, "What is this? An Immortal's cave magic weapon? The Zhao family manor in the mortal world may work." Yang Chun explained. Upon hearing that it was the Zhao clan's manor in the mortal world, Li Cheng immediately understood. From the very beginning, Yang Chun and Li Cheng had suspected that this place was set up by the Zhao family. This Zhao family manor was a magic treasure that had been refined by the Zhao family's ancestor in the mortal world. There must be some unique aura of the Zhao family on it. Perhaps if it was used here, it might not cause the counterattack of this formation. The Zhao family manor was something that Yang Chun had requested from Tao Junkie before entering the trial grounds. He hoped that he might have an opportunity to use it, just in case. The current situation was just the right time to give it a try. Good stuff. Aren't you afraid of ruining it? Li Cheng was also tempted and was eager to give it a try. This tactical matrix had troubled him for several years. Now that there was a chance to solve it, Li Cheng wished he could do it right away. But before he did it, he still had to remind Yang Chun. The Zhao family has spent a lot of effort to refine this manor. Once it is destroyed, you won't be able to explain it to your concubine, will you? If it's destroyed, then it's destroyed. Yang Chun said indifferently, but the next sentence made Li Cheng a little dumbfounded. At most, you can compensate me with a dragon palace. I have both the water and fire dragon palaces, but I want one with other attributes. A manor in exchange for a dragon palace, no matter how you looked at it, was a deal that would definitely be profitable. Li Cheng was amused by Yang Chun's rascally request. He pointed at Yang Chun for a while and didn't say anything. He wanted to point at Yang Chun's nose and scold him. Could you be more shameless? When Li Cheng calmed down, he simply ignored the lazy Yang Chun and began to think about the possibility of using the Zhao family manor. In fact, he couldn't think of anything just by thinking about it. In the end, he still had to put it into practice. The practical method was very simple. He controlled the Zhao family manor and slowly approached the barrier of the formation. He just had to be careful not to hurt himself. Under the gaze of Yang Chun, Li Cheng controlled the Zhao family manor and slowly enlarged it to a radius of several meters. Then, he slowly approached the formation. Little by little, he finally came into contact with the formation in a corner of the manor. As soon as the two came into contact, it caused a tremor on the formation barrier. Yang Chun and Li Cheng were careful to guard against it, for fear of the kind of movement that happened before. Fortunately, this time, the barrier only trembled a little, and then it accepted the Zhao family manor, as if it had softened. Yang Chun and Li Cheng were overjoyed. Looking at this scene, they looked at each other, and then Li Cheng controlled the Zhao family manor to move forward again. The manor seemed to be inserted into a ball of soft glue. It was silent, but there was no obstruction at all until half of the manor entered the formation barrier. At this point, the two had confirmed that the Zhao family manor would not be blocked here, nor would it cause any big movement. The two, who were overjoyed, almost entered the shrunken manor at the same time. Then, they controlled the manor to move forward in the main hall of the manor. A transparent barrier appeared outside the room of the manor, but it did not enter the room at all. Yang Chun and Li Cheng were overjoyed to watch the manor slowly enter the barrier, bringing the two of them inside. When the last part of the manor slowly entered the formation, Li Cheng took the lead and jumped out. After being blocked outside this formation for several years, Li Cheng was also suffocated. Yang Chun followed him outside. After entering inside, it seemed that there were not many restrictions. At least the two did not feel any restrictions. The two put away the Zhao family manor, still wrapped in the sea-pouring jasper cup, and quietly began to explore the scenery inside. The space inside was still not small, at least 10,000 miles. Such a big place, even if it was a rough inspection, it would take a lot of time. A few months later, the two had probably wandered around the space inside the formation. At this moment, they stopped in a certain position. Li Cheng's face also showed a long-lost smile. He turned to Yang Chun and asked, "How do you feel?" "It's a bit like the core of the demon continent. Yang Chun looked in that direction through the sea-pouring jasper cup and said with a little uncertainty, "However, there is no unique aura released there, but the hole is much larger than the core of the demon continent. I know where those monsters came from." Li Cheng seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, and he was finally relieved, and his tone was also relaxed. Just as the two were talking, a monster at the peak of Xian Immortal crawled out of a huge hole dozens of miles away in front of the two, roared, and rushed outside. The hole, at least 100 miles in radius, was very illusory, half hanging in the air and half buried in the ground. No matter from which direction it looked, it seemed to be like this. "What are you still looking at? It's your turn." Li Cheng watched the monster go away and pushed Yang Chun and said, "Me?" Yang Chun was shocked on the spot. "Here." Chapter 1805. The worst monster that appeared here was also a high-level Xian Immortal, and the realm of the Earth Dragon was a few lines worse. Even if Yang Chun counted all the magic weapons on his body, the Great Yin and Yang 5-element sword, plus the Great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art, plus the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, he would not necessarily be the opponent of a monster here. What's more, within 1,000 miles around here, there were at least 5 or 6 monsters at the peak of Xian Immortal. Wasn't it courting death to make a move here? "It's not your turn to kill the monster." Li Cheng gave Yang Chun a white look and said angrily, "Do you have that strength? Then why should I do it?" Yang Chun asked puzzledly. If he didn't kill the monster, what else could he do here? Alchemy? Refine that space exit? Li Cheng didn't want to look at Yang Chun anymore and said directly, "The hole with a radius of 100 miles, dozens of miles away from the opposite side. Yang Chun had just judged that it was a space entrance and exit like the core of the demon continent. To be precise, it should be a space exit, one way, and he couldn't go in from here. In essence, they were all objects that could be refined by the cultivation method obtained by Yang Chun. So big? Yang Chun looked at the huge exit that was hundreds of miles long and was stunned. It will take thousands of years, right? In the mortal world, even if Yang Chun had refined the core of the demon continent, even if he had refined the entrance of the immortal executioner platform, the two combined were not half as big as this one, not even 1/10. The largest immortal executioner platform was only a few hundred feet high, and the core of the demon continent was simply a point. Compared with this, it was like the clouds and mud. It took Yang Chun hundreds of years to refine the core of the demon continent, and it took hundreds of years to refine the entrance of the immortal executioner platform with the help of hundreds of human immortal level tool spirits. How long would it take for this monster space exit? What's wrong with it being big? Your cultivation is still high. Li Cheng didn't care about Yang Chun's hard work at all. Maybe Yang Chun's scoundrel words caused Li Cheng to be dissatisfied, so he vented his anger on him. But this is too big. It was because Yang Chun had experience refining space that he knew how hard it was to refine it. Facing such a huge monster, Yang Chun couldn't help but feel discouraged. It was hard to say whether or not he could refine it before he ascended. Cut the crap and get to work. Li Cheng urged impatiently. When you want benefits, you have to think about how to work. Yang Chun complained, but his hands did not stop. His divine sense had already reached out and began to touch the spatial exit to carry out the first step of refining. The first layer of refinement was not a true refinement. Instead, it allowed Yang Chun to establish a connection with the exit of this space so that Yang Chun could refine the space at any time and anywhere. This step of refining was very important, and the exit of the demonic B space was so big that the time needed was also a very considerable number. Moreover, once he started, there was no way to stop. If it weren't for Li Cheng, Yang Chun wouldn't even dare to move easily here. If it weren't for Li Cheng's presence, Yang Chun wouldn't even dare to move easily here. The strength of the demonic beast here was by no means comparable to some super big sect in the spiritual world. In just an instant, Yang Chun was targeted by dozens of Xian Immortal Peak demonic beasts. Li Cheng urged Yang Chun, but it already appeared directly, shielding Yang Chun behind him, and directly rushed towards the nearest demonic beast. The following things basically had nothing to do with Yang Chun. He only needed to concentrate on refining the spatial exit, and all the demonic beasts would be resisted by Li Cheng. However, before he was completely immersed in the refinement, Yang Chun still released Di Long and asked him to help Li Cheng block those demonic beasts. After all, Di Long was also around the level of Xian Immortal Grade 6. Even if he couldn't help much, he could help a little. The demonic beast's earth-shaking roar sounded in his ears, but Yang Chun didn't care at all. He believed in Li Cheng's judgment, and even more so in Li Cheng's ability. Since Big Brother Li Cheng was here and wanted him to refine it immediately, then Yang Chun believed that there would be no problem. Vaguely, the surrounding mountains and ground seemed to have collapsed, as if this place had become an experimental field of creation. The terrain began to change constantly. One moment it was a mountain peak, the next moment it was a valley. Every change was accompanied by an earth-shattering movement, as if the sky was falling. What was shocking was that there was no change in the area where Yang Chun was. It had been maintaining the original state, motionless. No matter how powerful the demonic beasts were attacking, it was not affected in the slightest. There seemed to be an invisible, transparent cover around Yang Chun's body, protecting Yang Chun in it. In the process of refining, Yang Chun was also thinking about how the exit of this demonic beast space was formed. Was it opened by the Zhao family with great magical power like the Demon Continent and the mortal world? Or did the Zhao family first find this opening and then make this trial place according to the local conditions? What was the relationship between this demonic beast space exit and the 9 Xian immortal level demonic beasts on the periphery? Without the evidence of the Zhao family's ancestors, no one could know the whole story. Yang Chun just guessed it and didn't want to know the bottom line immediately. Yang Chun was very curious. As soon as Big Brother Li Cheng saw this demonic beast space exit, he asked Yang Chun to refine it. Why? Now Yang Chun was basically certain that the demonic beast space exit should be the source of the millennium demonic tribulation in the spiritual world and also the source of those demonic beasts. Refining the space, it was best to completely block this exit so that there would be no millennium demonic tribulation. This was, of course, the best. However, Yang Chun knew very well that if he wanted to completely refine this space exit and completely block this button, let alone 1,000 years, maybe even double the time was not enough. This was also based on the premise that Yang Chun didn't do most of the things and only focused on improving his cultivation and refining the space. If he was distracted again, he didn't know how long it would take. Yang Chun didn't even know if those Xian immortal peak demonic beasts crawled out during the complete refining process. Would it affect his refining process? In short, this was a very tricky thing, and he had to do it. How was the millennium demonic tribulation completed in his previous life? Yang Chun couldn't remember the reason until now. It seemed that it happened inexplicably, and then it ended inexplicably. Except for causing heavy casualties to the cultivators of the spiritual world, there was nothing left, which was very strange. Yang Chun, who was immersed in the refining process, hardly felt the passage of time. When he felt that he had completely completed the first stage of refining, when he opened his eyes and looked at the surrounding situation, even the calm Yang Chun couldn't help but widen his eyes. Chapter 1806. In front of Yang Chun, it was simply the scene of the most desolate ancient battlefield. There was scorched land everywhere, and some places had even turned into something like glass. In a radius of thousands of miles, there was not a single flat place, which was completely different from when Yang Chun and Li Cheng first saw the space exit. It was directly scorched earth. It was not known how many fierce battles it had gone through to become such a ragged appearance. Only the place where Yang Chun sat within a radius of 10 feet was not affected at all. It was still so flat, and even the grass beside Yang Chun was still stubbornly alive. Pure land and scorched earth, peace and war. The two opposing scenes appeared in the same picture, which seemed very strange. Done. A familiar voice sounded in his ear, and the figure of Big Brother Li Cheng also appeared. Just by listening to the voice, one could hear the exhaustion on Big Brother Li Cheng's body, and seeing his figure, it was confirmed. Li Cheng, who looked like a jade before, had now become a bearded man. If it weren't for the familiar figure and the familiar aura, Yang Chun wouldn't dare to recognize him. The original cultivation base of the 4th grade human immortal had now become the level of the earth immortal. Yang Chun didn't know when Li Cheng improved his cultivation base and when he crossed the tribulation. Yang Chen didn't know at all. In other words, Li Cheng didn't want to disturb Yang Chen at all and didn't let him know. It could force Li Cheng to raise his cultivation base from the human immortal realm to the earth immortal level in a short period of time. One could imagine what kind of battle he had experienced. Fortunately, Li Cheng finally persisted until the moment when Yang Chun refined the space exit. Although only the first layer of refining was completed, Yang Chun could already stay away from this area. Through the connection with the space exit, Yang Chun could refine anywhere. Let's go. Yang Chun didn't say anything. He stood up and left immediately. Li Cheng did not neglect. The sea jasper was wrapped. The two figures disappeared instantly, directly drilled into the ground, and began to leave the periphery. Yang Chen's wrist tightened. The earth dragon turned back into a simple bracelet and returned to Yang Chen's side. How long has it been? With Li Cheng around, Yang Chen didn't have to calculate how long it took. He could just ask directly. As he asked, he pulled out a few jars of wine and placed them beside big brother Li Cheng. Over 30 years. Li Cheng answered, then impatiently opened a jar of wine and poured it into his mouth. After drinking to his heart's content, Li Cheng-kai threw the empty wine jar to the side in an extremely forthright manner. He wiped the wine stains from the corner of his mouth with his sleeve and shouted, "Awesome!" Yang Chen looked at big brother Li Cheng with a smile and didn't say anything. When he finished drinking, Yang Chen pointed a little at his clothes and directly took out a set of new clothes from the Chinquin bag and handed it over. With Li Cheng's cultivation base, Yang Chen believed that if he was not at the end of the battle, he would never have no decent clothes on his body. It was obvious that he had reached his limit, which was why he was in such a sorry state. Li Cheng did not refuse at all. The relationship between the two was not polite for a new set of clothes. Anyway, there was no need to worry about the safety of Yang Chen now, and other monsters could not see or detect their whereabouts. So Li Cheng naturally relaxed. After a while, Li Cheng, who had restored his previous handsome face, appeared in front of Yang Chen again. Without saying anything, he picked up a wine jar and touched it with Yang Chen. The two held the jar and drank, then they began to talk. Will there be any effect on your cultivation base? Although more than 30 years had passed unknowingly, Yang Chen did not care about this at all, but worriedly asked about Li Cheng's cultivation base. More than 30 years to raise his cultivation base from the worldly immortal realm to the earthly immortal level. This was a bit too fast. There must be some problems that could not be seen on the surface. My body is strong enough. It's not a big problem. Li Cheng explained vaguely. The general meaning was that there was no effect. Yang Chen did not ask more and nodded silently. Since Li Cheng said there was no problem, naturally, it should not be a big problem. However, this did not mean that Yang Chen did not do anything. Soon, there was a big peach in Yang Chen's hand. The peach was very fresh, just picked from the peach tree, and there was still some morning dew on it. Yang Chen directly pushed the peach in front of Li Cheng, and at the same time, there was a 6-turn Ganoderma jade pill. This is the fruit of the South Pole immortal old man's immortal peach tree. It is full of vitality. Take it to nourish yourself. Yang Chen only introduced the peach, but didn't say much about the 6-turn Ganoderma jade pill. The merit chapter was originally given to Yang Chen by Li Cheng, so he believed that he would be able to recognize it at a glance. Li Cheng did not act pretentiously, and directly took the peach and ate it. After so many years of almost non-stop fighting, he had almost used up all his energy, and this peach from Yang Chen could help him recover some of his vitality. The Ganoderma jade pill was not wasted, no matter how strong his body was, forcefully raising his cultivation base in addition to the non-stop battles. There were definitely many internal injuries in his body, and one pill might not be enough. Yang Chen had already expected this, and as soon as the pill entered his stomach, a bottle was immediately sent to Li Cheng's hand. Pills could not be consumed in one go. There had to be a process of consumption. After so many years, Li Cheng could be said to have felt great pressure, and the enemies he faced were at least Xian Immortal 5th grade, and he was extremely tired. But there were some things that he had to do, so Li Cheng gritted his teeth and persevered. Now that he felt Yang Chen's heartfelt concern, his heart felt warm. Cultivators did not cut off their emotions, and it was indeed a very happy thing to have such a brother who worked well with him. What about your side? Although Li Cheng had already guessed the result, he still asked out of curiosity. After completing the first stage of the refinement, I could be more at ease. Yang Chen answered in a little more detail. He knew that Li Cheng understood, because when he was refining the entrance of the Immortal beheading platform in the mortal world, he asked Li Cheng to help guide him on the refinement technique. However, the problem is still very troublesome. To completely refine it, it will at least take thousands of years. Yang Chen looked at Li Cheng worriedly and added, I'm afraid this demon B space exit won't give us that much time. Li Cheng nodded. If this space exit could not be sealed as soon as possible, then it would still be a huge time bomb that could explode at any time. But Li Cheng did not know that when Yang Chen said it wouldn't take that long, he meant that in the future, the 1,000-year demonic calamity would only last for 1,000 years, and then it would calm down. There's a way. Li Cheng seemed to have already considered this problem, and one sentence immediately made Yang Chen completely relieved. Chapter 1807. If Li Cheng said there was a way, then there must be a way. Yang Chen was convinced of this. It was not the time to say it immediately. Yang Chen planned to let Li Cheng have a good rest first. However, when Yang Chen habitually looked down and saw the earth dragon on his wrist, he was shocked again. He closed his eyes hard and opened them again to make sure that he was not mistaken. Then he raised his head in amazement. Originally, the earth dragon was only about the 6th grade of Immortal, but now, in just over 30 years, it had become a great demon beast master at the peak of Immortal. How is this possible? Li Cheng had forcibly raised his cultivation from the human immortal realm to the earth immortal realm, and he had already paid a great price. That was when he was 2 realms lower from the 6th grade of Immortal to the peak of Immortal. In such a short period of time, it was hard to imagine what kind of treasures the earth dragon had swallowed and what kind of price he had paid. It's not surprising. Li Cheng looked at Yang Chen's eyes and knew what Yang Chen was thinking. He glanced at the earth dragon on Yang Chen's wrist and said calmly, if you had swallowed tens of thousands of demon beast corpses at the peak of Immortal in 30 years, you could have improved so fast. Yang Chen suddenly understood. After such a big battle at the exit of the demon beast space, there was no demon beast corpse left. It turned out that they all went into the stomach of the earth dragon. No wonder it was estimated that only this guy's big stomach could swallow all the corpses. Even if it couldn't be refined for a while, it could be properly preserved. This was not surprising. There were so many demon beast corpses, each of which could be said to be a tonic with more potent medicinal effect than the Millennium Pill that Yang Chen could refine. After eating so many, even a pig would become a pig of Immortal level. Needless to say, the Earth Dragon originally had the cultivation of the 6th grade of Immortal. Li Cheng was too tired. After absorbing the Immortal Peach and refining the medicinal pill, he directly fell into a deep sleep. It was not a meditative state, but a deep sleep. This was a state that would only occur when he was exhausted to the extreme. Yang Chen did not disturb Li Cheng at all, and quietly controlled the sea jasper to dive deeper into the ground and stopped, without revealing the slightest sound. Brother Li Cheng's rest was more important. Other things could be put aside for later. Under Yang Chen's protection, Li Cheng slept for a whole month. During this period, the snoring was like thunder. If it weren't for the sea-pouring jasper cup that could isolate the sound and isolate the detection of spiritual awareness, not to mention anything else, this snoring alone could attract a large group of monsters. Only when Li Cheng woke up from his deep slumber did Yang Chen completely relax. When he woke up, all of Li Cheng's exhaustion was swept away, and even the expression on his face was much more vivid. Without saying anything, after Li Cheng woke up, he directly took a 6th grade merit Ganoderma mushroom jade pill. After refining it, he sat opposite Yang Chen with ease. This time, Yang Chun released both a Zhu and a Bai and asked them to collect some precious medicinal materials and put them into a few fruit plates. Then the two women served Yang Chun and Li Cheng slowly drinking and chatting. Before, Li Cheng's image was too embarrassing. In order to take care of Li Cheng's face, Yang Chun faced Li Cheng alone. Now, there was no such scruples. With someone serving him, Brother Li Cheng was also happy. Two things. Li Cheng and Yang Chun never talked much nonsense. After drinking a few cups, they went straight to the subject. First, you have to refine that space exit as soon as possible. What about the other one? Needless to say, this matter must be a top priority. Yang Chun didn't have to ask why. He just asked about the second thing. How are you going to settle this guy? Li Cheng pouted with his mouth, indicating the earth dragon on Yang Chen's wrist. I haven't thought about it. Yang Chen also had some headaches when he was guarding Li Cheng these days. The earth dragon's intelligence was not developed, but its strength had already reached an incredible level. What was more terrifying was that its strength would increase as the corpses of the demonic beasts in its stomach were refined one by one. If it was not handled properly, it would directly become the most unstable bomb. The most troublesome thing was that the Earth Dragon had not ascended after reaching the Xian Immortal realm because it was affected by the sealing formation of the Zhao family. It might not matter at the Xian Immortal realm, but once it broke through the Xian Immortal realm and entered the Golden Immortal realm, it would inevitably trigger the Xian Immortal Tribulation. It was very difficult to cross the Xian Immortal Tribulation at the same time of ascension. It was very likely that the Earth Dragon would be turned into ashes because of this. Sometimes, it was not a good thing to grow strength too fast. Yang Chun had to face this problem now. If it was an ordinary Xian Immortal expert, Yang Chun could ignore it and let nature take its course. However, the Earth Dragon had no intelligence, which meant that if it was allowed to solve the problem by itself, it was likely to bring about unpredictable results. It would be best if it could ascend normally, Yang Chun said with some speculation. Then, he saw Li Cheng's eyes staring at him. In the end, he took back the words that even he did not believe. It can't ascend normally now. Li Cheng directly gave a conclusion, which also broke Yang Chen's thoughts. Besides, even if there's a 1 in a million chance that it ascends normally when it reaches the immortal world, it is just a reptile that can be stepped on at any time. It will not have any good treatment, unless you also ascend when it ascends. But even so, you will probably have to take care of it for a lifetime in the immortal world. The Earth Dragon had no intelligence, which had already determined that it could only be a demonic beast of the lowest level. If it was lucky, it would be taken as a demonic pet. If it was unlucky, it would not be strange if it was killed to practice. Not to mention the demonic beasts that came out of the demonic beast space, which one of them was not at the peak of the Xian Immortal realm. Weren't they just a group of trapped beasts in the trial ground? Big brother, what's your idea? Yang Chun did not think about it, so he directly asked Li Cheng for advice. Li Cheng and the Earth Dragon had fought side by side for 30 years, and they had to face strong enemies almost all the time. Even if the Earth Dragon had no intelligence, the friendship formed in this kind of battle was not so easy to erase. Presumably, it was because of this that Li Cheng had to take pains to arrange the life of the Earth Dragon. It's not advisable to ascend to the immortal world. Li Cheng looked at Yang Chun and then at the Earth Dragon. The Earth Dragon did not know that he was talking about it all. It was obediently coiled on Yang Chen's wrist and did not move. Perhaps, in some way, we can let it shield itself from the heavenly tribulation, so that it doesn't have to worry about the arrival of the heavenly tribulation and it doesn't have to worry about ascending. It's better to stay in the spiritual realm. Finally, Li Cheng said his own suggestion. It's better to be a master in the spiritual realm than to be a reptile in the immortal world. If you are willing, I can help you deal with it, and Chunyang Palace can also have a secure rear. Chapter 1808. A safe base. Yang Chen didn't understand what Li Cheng meant. It was understandable that Chunyang Palace had a supermaster as their backing, but a strong base could not be built by a master. Have you forgotten where the Zhao family manor is in the mortal world? Li Cheng looked at Yang Chen's confusion and couldn't help but remind him. As soon as Li Cheng reminded him, Yang Chun remembered it immediately. The Zhao family manor had always been placed on the back of Longxian and moved around on the seabed. He could go wherever he wanted. Did Brother Li Cheng mean? Yes. Li Cheng nodded. The earth dragon is huge, but it can naturally shield the divine sense. At least in the spiritual realm, if the home is in the stomach of the earth dragon, no master can break it. Unless this master has the guts to enter the mouth of the earth dragon. This was a good idea. As long as there was a suitable cave house magic treasure, he believed that Li Cheng could easily put this magic treasure into the stomach of the earth dragon. This Immortal's cave magic weapon was regarded as the real mountain gate of the Pure Yang Palace. Just like the Pure Yang Palace in the mortal world had a blue vault mountain Immortal's cave, only the core disciples could enter. It could be said to be safe to the extreme. Not to mention anything else, just the earth dragon's current Xian Immortal cultivation base. No cultivator dared to casually attack it. The last time he was attacked by the three supreme Xian Immortal masters of the Zhao family would never happen again. First, they might not be able to find the place. Second, even if they found the place, they might not have the guts to go in. Third, even if they went in, they might not be able to survive. With such a stable base, Chunyang Palace would no longer have to worry about anything. In this way, the Earth Dragon could always be the guardian beast of Chunyang Palace in the spiritual realm, enjoying the gratitude and filial piety of all the disciples of Chunyang Palace, which was better than ascending to the immortal world and becoming the lowest reptile. And Chunyang Palace had a cave house that would almost never fall in the spiritual realm. Everyone was happy. Looking down at the Earth Dragon bracelet, Yang Chun knew that the Earth Dragon would never express his will. He didn't even have his own will. Well, it's settled. In an instant, Yang Chun made a decision. You can find a suitable cave house yourself. Li Cheng didn't wait for Yang Chun to say anything and directly blocked Yang Chen's possible words. I'm only responsible for the last move. Yang Chun shrugged his shoulders. This problem was really not too troublesome. The Zhao's manor was won, and after Zhou Xianing the cave house left, Zhou's cave house was refined. It was not a big deal. Yang Chun would turn over another Immortal's cave in his memory, and the three Immortals' cave could be combined to make this core Immortals' cave in the Pure Yang Palace one of the best Immortals' cave in the spiritual world. Yang Chun and Palace Sek Yang Zhou Cheng's Titi Zhou, Yang Chun, Chin the Chun the cave, and S help Zhou teaches Chen by Zhou Ti the Chun Zhou's the Chin's refining T. To speed up the refining, Yang Chin knew that there was a way. He had tried this method in the mortal world, which was to find enough masters to work together to help refine. However, could this method also be used in the spiritual world? Where could he find enough masters to help? It must be known that, according to Yang Chin's estimation, it would take thousands of years for Yang Chun to refine the space exit alone. In order to speed up the process, it should be shortened to within 2,000 years. According to the experience in the mortal world, Yang Chun had to find at least 1,000 masters who were above the Earth immortal level to refine at the same time. Did he want Yang Chun to go back to Chunyang Palace to mobilize manpower? It's not so troublesome. Li Cheng shook his head directly and denied Yang Chen's idea. Moreover, your method is too slow. If you want to achieve the best effect, it is better to refine it within 100 years as much as possible. This was even more incredible. To shorten it from 2,000 years to 100 years, the number of masters needed was definitely more than tens of thousands. Even if the entire Chunyang Palace was included, it would barely be enough. Unless the disciples of Chunyang Palace did not do anything, Yang Chun did not have to think about this matter at all. However, Li Cheng said that it was not so troublesome. What was the solution? There are enough masters in this place. Li Cheng replied with a smile and pointed to the top of his head. Here. Yang Chen couldn't help but cry out. In the innermost part of this trial ground, there were indeed many experts, and all of them were above grade 5 Xian Immortal. They were definitely top Earth Immortals, and 100 of them were more than enough. But would these demonic beasts obediently help Yang Chen refine the demonic beast exit? I couldn't get in before because I had no choice. Now that I'm in, it's another matter. Li Cheng laughed. At this moment, his relaxed expression seemed to have calmed down after being blocked outside for a few years. Yang Qin's questioning gaze drifted over again. If this problem was not explained clearly, it was estimated that Yang Chen would not be able to sleep. Li Cheng drank 2 mouthfuls of jade dragon wine and began to explain slowly. At the exit of the beast space, a Xian immortal level demonic beast would come out every once in a while. This was certain. What Li Cheng had to do was to set up a special formation around the space exit according to the local conditions. The main function of this formation was to trap those demonic beasts that rushed out. It would not be completely trapped, but after those demonic beasts used all their spiritual power and divine sense, they could leave at a relatively slow speed. In this way, the time that these Xian immortal demonic beasts stayed here was imperceptibly increased. The main function of the formation was to transfer the spiritual power and divine sense of these Xian immortal demonic beasts to Yang Chen. Yang Chen would guide and use these powers to refine the space exit. According to Li Cheng's estimation, this large formation could trap thousands of Xian immortal demonic beasts at a time. Even if there were demonic beasts rushing out of the large formation, there would be a steady stream of demonic beasts entering the formation from the exit. In this formation, there would always be thousands of Xian immortal level 5 and above demonic beasts helping Yang Chen. According to this method, it was entirely possible to complete the refining within 100 years, or even shorter. The only requirement was that the formation that Li Cheng said was feasible. Since Li Cheng said so now, it must be feasible. With so many Xian immortal demonic beasts attacking at the same time, the effect would definitely exceed tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of ordinary Earth immortal experts. What Yang Chen had to do was to control these powers and put them into the refining space exit. Controlling so many experts to refine together, your current cultivation is slightly insufficient. Li Cheng directly pointed out the biggest shortcoming of Yang Chen and indirectly put forward his own request. You haven't really improved your cultivation since you ascended. Since you have accumulated enough, you should improve quickly, especially the divine sense. You need to at least reach the peak of Heaven Immortal or even higher to be able to completely control the joint forces of so many demonic beasts. Chapter 1809. What Li Cheng said was not a lie. Thousands of monsters above the 5th grade of Xian Immortal attacked with all their might. Even if Yang Chen didn't have to do it himself and just guided this power, it was not something that his current Human Immortal 3rd grade spiritual power cultivation base and Heaven Immortal 3rd grade spiritual awareness cultivation base could withstand. Improving his cultivation base had become inevitable. As Li Cheng said, Yang Chen had not improved his spiritual power cultivation base since his ascension. On the one hand, Yang Chen wanted to make himself fully adapt to the spiritual pressure of the spiritual world. On the other hand, Yang Chen was still waiting for the Great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art to have enough spiritual power circulation. Before, Yang Chen was immersed in the work of refining the first layer of the space exit and did not pay attention to his cultivation base. Now hearing Li Cheng say that he had accumulated enough, he subconsciously checked his Great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art. After just one circulation, Yang Chen's face showed a surprised expression. Originally, he had some deliberate pursuit of forcibly adapting to the spiritual pressure, but in the process of refining the space, he inadvertently achieved such an effect, and the effect was even much better than deliberate cultivation. In one breath, 10 kinds of original spiritual power flowed naturally in his body, and he didn't feel a little jerkiness at all. This was completely different from the jerkiness he felt not long ago. Of course, it was also because a long time had passed, and he had already reached the hundreds of millions of circulations that Big Brother Li Cheng said. However, if Yang Chen had been paying attention to this and started to improve his cultivation base as soon as he met the requirements, it would not be as good as this kind of inadvertently achieved results and unknowingly consolidated achievements for decades. With his own feeling, and Big Brother Li Cheng also said that there was no problem, Yang Chen could finally rest assured and boldly improve his cultivation base. Over the years, he had watched his wives and concubines surpass his own cultivation base. Although Yang Chun was not worse than them in terms of combat effectiveness, the feeling and the opinion of outsiders was that Yang Chun was really a man who lived off a woman, which was very uncomfortable. Now he finally didn't have to endure that kind of discomfort anymore, and he didn't have to worry that he had not fully adapted to the spiritual pressure. Yang Chun would definitely erupt with a cultivation speed that would make everyone stunned. The Great Yin Yang 5 Elemental Secret Art was not just a simple addition of the 10 types of origin spiritual powers, but a super powerful cultivation method that included the positive and negative 5 elements. Phew! Yang Chun let out a long breath and then took a deep breath. A mouthful of incomparably pure spiritual power entered into Yang Chen's body as he inhaled. This spiritual power made a turn in Yang Chen's body and entered into his dantian. It was enhanced by the Great Yin and Yang 5 Elements Secret Art. When Yang Chun exhaled, the spiritual power in his body had significantly increased. Although compared to Yang Chen's current spiritual power, the increase in spiritual power wasn't that obvious. With Yang Chun and Li Cheng's cultivation, they could clearly feel the movement of the increase in spiritual power in Yang Chen's body. It could be said that as long as Yang Chun was still breathing and circulating the Great Yin Yang 5 Elements Secret Art, the spiritual power in his body would increase at an unbelievable speed. The feeling of increase was so shocking that it could be seen with the naked eye. "I'll give you 3 months." Li Cheng was very happy to see Yang Chen's discovery, but he still gave Yang Chen a deadline. He had to adjust himself to his peak state within 3 months. Then, you have to get used to the control of the spiritual power in your body after the supreme, Xian, immortal level demon beast joined the formation. Yang Chen didn't say much and nodded heavily. Li Cheng definitely had to set up the formation in these 3 months. And Yang Chun wasn't arrogant enough to think that a mere human immortal like him could completely control the spiritual power of thousands of Xian immortal level 5 and above demon beasts. Raising his cultivation was already a must. This was a last resort, and Yang Chun would not face it. After closing his eyes and adjusting his state, Yang Chun directly took out a few millennium pills that he had kept for a long time and swallowed them. These millennium pills were refined by Yang Chun when he was in the mortal world, using the method of the merit chapter. His original intention of refining these pills was to be a precaution, to give himself and Chunyang Palace a little more insurance when they roamed the spiritual realm. He didn't expect that he would use it now, when he didn't have the chance to use it before. A millennium pill could increase Yang Chen's cultivation by 1,000 years in the mortal world. With the merit chapter's refining method and the huge amount of merit that Yang Chun used to refine the pills, it could be said that there were almost no side effects. As for the problem of the spiritual power and mental state not matching after consuming the millennium pill, it was even more impossible for this to happen to Yang Chun. With the cultivation of a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal in his previous life, Yang Chun could easily endure this kind of spiritual power increase. It had to be said that the medicinal effect of the Millennium Pill was really amazing. Even if it only increased the cultivation of 1,000 years in the mortal world, it was still a force that couldn't be ignored in the spiritual realm. One had to know that from the beginning of Yang Chen's cultivation until his ascension, the time he spent in the mortal world was only a little more than 1,000 years. The effect of 1,000 years of cultivation in the mortal world was enough for Yang Chun to rise to the level of a human immortal level 6 or higher. The aura that Yang Chen's body emitted was increasing at a rapid speed. In just a short 10 days, Yang Chen's aura had already become a human immortal level 4. In the following month, he was constantly improving. Human immortal level 5, human immortal level 6, all the way to the human immortal level 7. The effect of one millennium pill was already so strong, not to mention that Yang Chun had taken at least 5 of them at once. For a full 4 months, Yang Chen's cultivation kept increasing. Human immortal level 8, human immortal level 9, he successfully stepped into the peak of human immortal level. If people saw this kind of monstrous cultivation speed, their jaws would definitely drop to the ground. Which normal cultivator didn't spend thousands of years in the spiritual realm to pass the human immortal tribulation, earth immortal tribulation, and heaven immortal tribulation before ascending to the immortal realm? How could they have such an abnormal cultivation speed like Yang Chen's? Originally, he only gave Yang Chen 3 months, but after Li Cheng finished setting up the formation, he realized that Yang Chen's cultivation still hadn't stopped increasing. So he simply stayed on the spot and waited slowly. He was also a little curious about what kind of surprise Yang Chen would bring him. Yang Chen continued to refine the medicinal power until the 5th month. Only then did he completely refine the medicinal power of the 5 Millennium Merit Pills. His cultivation also directly reached the peak of human immortal level, maybe even higher. When Yang Chen finally opened his eyes, as if responding to Yang Chen's changes, the sky started to turn dark slowly. Countless tribulation clouds started to condense rapidly, gathering into a huge ball above Yang Chen's head. Chapter 1810. The location of the two was not an ordinary place, but near the core of the space exit. The heavens tribulation was so huge that it directly alarmed at least thousands of Xian immortal monsters. Every monster's cultivation base was above the 5th grade of Xian immortal. Of course, they would not care too much about a mere human immortal tribulation. It could even be said that it was simply a heavens tribulation to scratch them. But for Yang Chen, it was another matter. The human immortal tribulation driven by thousands of Xian immortal monsters had directly increased its power by no less than 1,000 times. Even the earthly immortal tribulation of ordinary cultivators may not have such great power. The only good thing was that Li Cheng's formation had been arranged. Although the monsters were strong, they were basically within the scope of the formation. Li Cheng also found that the situation was not right in an instant and immediately activated the formation without hesitation. This formation could trap those monsters for a long time. If Yang Chen was disturbed by these powerful monsters during his tribulation, it would definitely be a disaster. If they had to blame something, they could only blame themselves for doing something so big that they couldn't even choose a better place to cross the tribulation. Li Cheng also faced the tribulation in the middle of the battle last time, and this time it was Yang Chen's turn. In the face of the human immortal tribulation that had expanded at least 1,000 times, Yang Chen no longer dared to be arrogant and directly summoned the 24 Penglai Divine Wood Monsters. As soon as the Penglai Divine Wood Monsters appeared, they immediately arranged 2 12 Yuanshan Sea Suppression formations, which firmly protected Yang Chen. The Penglai Divine Wood Monsters deserved to be the powerful monster race with the word divine in their name. They were the powerful wood monsters themselves, plus the 2 12 Yuanshan Sea Suppression formations. It could almost be said that there was no blind spot in the protection. The most abnormal thing was that the spiritual power they could bear was almost infinite. At this moment, Yang Chen had run the yellow turban strongman body refining technique to the extreme, and the muscles on his body bulged like a small snake. Around his body, there was a golden bell. At this time, Yang Chen had used 100% of his protective power. Boom! The human immortal tribulation began to descend, smashing down on Yang Chen's head. Yang Chen stood straight and stared at the sky. He held Xiao Tian in his hand and the immortal beheading blade in its mouth. Facing the human immortal tribulation, he slashed at it. A fierce light flashed around Yang Chen, and the 24 Penglai Divine Wood Demons directly turned into 24 burning torches. At the moment when they were just burning, Yang Chen opened his mouth, and a strong suction force directly sucked the flames on the Penglai Divine Wood Demon into his mouth. Being fire in the heavenly tribulation was a good thing. For Yang Chen, a grandmaster of fire, it was a good tonic that could not be better. It was rare to see on weekdays, and he could not miss it in any case. The immortal beheading saber also flashed with a dazzling light. Thunder, fire, and wind tribulations simultaneously fell on Yang Chen's body. In any case, Yang Chen was the master of the heavenly tribulation, and no one else could replace him. The reverse 5 elements formation of the Great Yin and Yang 5 elements secret art once again became a huge millstone, restoring the various forces that invaded the body to the most essential 5 elements, and then under the restraint of the 5 elements, it was a little bit worn down. If it was a normal heavenly tribulation, under the abnormal ability of Yang Chun, before the heavenly tribulation really hurt the body, the power of the heavenly tribulation would be worn out, and even the part that was injured by the heavenly tribulation would be repaired enough before the next heavenly tribulation, becoming more and more powerful. This was also the reason why the heavenly tribulation tempered the body. Unfortunately, what Yang Shan was facing now was a super heavenly tribulation that was more than 1,000 times more powerful than the ordinary heavenly tribulation. Even if there were 2 Penglai Divine with Demon's 12 Yuanshan C suppression formation, at most, it could only help Yang Chan block less than 20% of the power of the heavenly tribulation. The remaining part was still far beyond the power of the general heavenly tribulation. Yang Chen's body was directly penetrated by the power of the heavenly tribulation in an instant, and there was no intact place in the whole body. The power of the heavenly tribulation had been raised to the maximum, but it still could not completely offset the power of the heavenly tribulation. The power of the heavenly tribulation surged back and forth in Yang Chen's body, constantly destroying Yang Chen's body. Fortunately, Yang Chen's golden bell and the body of the yellow turban strongman body refining technique were strong enough to block half of the attack. However, if the remaining power could not be eliminated as soon as possible, Yang Chen would inevitably be directly destroyed. In his previous life, Yang Chen had passed a human immortal tribulation, and Yang Chen had the experience of crossing the tribulation. In the face of danger, he decisively guided the power of the heavenly tribulation to the exit of the refining beast space. The exit of the beast space really lived up to Yang Chen's expectations. The terrifying process of refining that required a lot of spiritual power and spiritual awareness was like a huge bottomless pit, easily absorbing the power of the heavenly tribulation, leaving no residue. The terrifying power that could destroy Yang Chen in one blow was like a drop of water dropping into the sea. Even a small ripple did not have time to make it. It disappeared without a trace. Not far away, Li Cheng, who was staring at Yang Chen like an invisible man, saw this scene, and his high heart fell back into his stomach. He was afraid that Yang Chen would not know the immensity of heaven and earth, and would not guide the power that he could not resist to other places. Now it seemed that he was not wrong. With the experience of the first heavenly tribulation, there was no more thrilling next. Yang Chen had mastered the method. In the gap between the 2 heavenly tribulations, after seizing the time to repair his body, he turned himself and Xiao Tian into a channel, allowing any power to pass through this channel, only controlling the direction of the power when necessary, and at the same time, absorbing some of the power to temper himself. This was what Li Cheng wanted Yang Chen to do in the future, and it was used by Yang Chen to start when crossing the tribulation. There was no way around it. The place of crossing the tribulation was not right. The power of the super heavenly tribulation, triggered by thousands of Xian immortal monsters, was really unexpected. In the whole process, at most 1% of the power of the heavenly tribulation was used by Yang Chen to temper himself. However, even if it was only 1%, it was 10 times stronger than the ordinary heavenly tribulation. It was more than enough to temper his own body and magic weapon. 99 heavenly tribulations, one by one, passed through the bodies of Xiao Tian and Yang Chen. After being absorbed by Yang Chen and Xiao Tian, most of them were used to refine the exit of the monster space. The huge power, each heavenly tribulation could be worth at least half a year of hard work for Yang Chen. After an hour, all the heavenly tribulations were blasted down, and then the tribulation clouds in the sky dissipated, and the sky was clear. Nothing had changed in the surrounding environment, except for the addition of 24 Penglai Divine Wood monsters. Even the grass was not damaged. Yang Chen had become a real Earth Immortal Master. Chapter 1811. I thought it was fast for me to cultivate from human immortal to Earth Immortal in 30 years. Li Cheng, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke after Yang Chun successfully passed the tribulation. "I didn't expect you to be even more ruthless. Big brother, you know the efficacy of the elixir." Yang Chun shook his head and said to Li Cheng, "It's just a stopgap measure. After the refinement is completed, I will have to lower my cultivation level and consolidate again. That's after passing the human immortal tribulation." Li Cheng, of course, knew that Yang Chen's method was not the right way. He was very satisfied that Yang Chen had a clear understanding of himself. You're willing to part with it. You can only gain by giving up. If you're willing to give up your cultivation level, there will be some benefits in your second cultivation. Yang Chen knew very well how he got his current cultivation level, so he had already made up his mind to cultivate again after the refinement. However, many other cultivators did not understand this principle. They simply thought that having a high cultivation level was a good thing. This also meant that their future would not be very brilliant. Cut the crap. If you don't take over, this formation will not be able to hold on any longer. Li Cheng said in a relaxed manner, but in his hand, he directly threw a jade plate carved from green jade to Yang Chen. This jade plate was the eye of the formation that Li Cheng had set up. All the power of the demonic beasts trapped in the formation would be transmitted to Yang Chen through this plate. Yang Chen would then control the power to refine the exit of the demonic beast space. Although Yang Chen had passed the human immortal tribulation and become a real earth immortal expert, he was still shocked when he saw the spiritual power transmitted from the array plate. What did it mean when thousands of Xian immortal experts, who were above grade 5 Xian immortal, attacked at the same time? Not to mention resisting it head-on. If one's cultivation level was slightly weaker and their mind was slightly careless, they would probably be smashed to pieces by the combined spiritual power. The human immortal tribulation that he had just passed was 1,000 times stronger. Compared to this power, it was like comparing a small stream to the Yellow River. 24 Penglai divine wood monsters, plus Yang Chun and Xiao Tian, suddenly became a passage connecting the exit of the monster space and Li Cheng's spirit trap formation. The massive spiritual power was like a roaring ocean, surging from this passage. Even though he was already at the level of an earth immortal, the spiritual power that Yang Chun could use was still much weaker than this enormous spiritual power. The only fortunate thing was that Li Cheng's spirit trap formation could control the amount of spiritual power that was released at once, so that Yang Chun could instantly control the spiritual power within the range that he could still control. Otherwise, the best outcome would be his body exploding and dying. Yang Chen's yin-yang 5-element spirit formation had been activated to the extreme. The huge spiritual power, under the amplification of the yin-yang 5-element spirit formation, rushed to the exit of the monster space to help Yang Chun complete the refining. The cyan jade formation could almost be said to have controlled the released spiritual power to the minimum. Even so, the spiritual power just passed through, and Yang Chun was almost unable to control it. Inside the body, countless subtle and imperceptible small wounds began to crack. The body that was strengthened by the yellow turban strongman body refining technique began to tremble slightly. In this regard, Yang Chun almost did not hesitate to swallow a few 6 grades merit Ganoderma holopills. The powerful medicinal power was not even refined by the spiritual power. The medicinal power of several medicinal pills directly accumulated in the body and quickly healed those invisible wounds. Yang Chun had expected such a situation. Even if Yang Chun was arrogant, no one could withstand the joint forces of thousands of Xian immortal 5th-grade monsters. For now, he could only control it while absorbing a little from the spiritual power passing through his body to quickly improve his cultivation. The higher Yang Chen's own cultivation, the more spiritual power he could control, and the faster the speed of refining the exit of the monster space. Therefore, in order to speed up, Yang Chun could only use the massive spiritual power passing through his body to improve his cultivation to the extreme in a short time. But there was obviously a limit to the improvement of spiritual power. If the speed was faster, what awaited Yang Chun would not be improvement, but his body would explode. Of course, there was another factor, and that was divine sense. The higher the cultivation of divine sense, the higher the spiritual power that could be controlled. Yang Chun now had the third grade heaven immortal divine sense. But this was far from enough compared to the spiritual power of thousands of Xian immortal fifth grade monsters. Under the premise that Yang Chun could not improve his spiritual power cultivation on a large scale, it was inevitable to improve his divine sense cultivation. The white ball in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness was still continuously releasing the purest divine sense of the great principal golden immortal, but Yang Chun was worried that his divine sense would split, so he had been suppressing it. Now, in order to achieve his goal as soon as possible, he could only take the risk of splitting his divine sense and improve his divine sense cultivation. Don't worry about the trouble of splitting your divine sense. Li Cheng could always accurately see Yang Chen's concerns, and said in a timely manner, if you don't want to have a clone or don't have a suitable carrier, it is also a good choice to use your split divine sense to refine a life source magic weapon's weapon spirit. Li Cheng's words rushed into Yang Chen's mind like wisdom. Before this, even counting Yang Chen's previous life, among the cultivators that Yang Chen came into contact with, no one used their second primordial spirit as a life source magic weapon's weapon spirit. How important a cultivator's divine sense was, as long as it was a cultivator, they could understand it. The stronger the divine sense, the stronger the strength. Under normal circumstances, no one would be willing to split their divine sense and actively lower their own cultivation. It must be known that divine sense was not comparable to spiritual power. Even if the realm was higher, there was no need to worry about any problems. On the contrary, the higher the divine sense cultivation base, the more benefits it would bring to cultivation. The cultivation method to cultivate divine sense was extremely precious. The only way to increase divine sense seemed to be in addition to double cultivation. Who would be willing to take the initiative to split their hard-earned divine sense and lower their cultivation base? In addition, the three purity secret art was so powerful that it would actively split the divine sense. How could it be obtained by ordinary people? Therefore, based on these reasons, what elder brother Li Cheng said, Yang Chen never thought about it. But now the situation was different. Yang Chen needed to greatly improve his divine sense cultivation base. So this method became the most suitable solution. The second primordial spirit was the weapon spirit of a life source magic weapon. There was no question of willingness or unwillingness at all. This was his own, and when he used it, it would only be more and more arbitrary. It had to be said that Li Cheng's guidance was really too critical. He directly gave Yang Chen the most appropriate advice at the most critical moment, and let Yang Chen completely open his mind and no longer be troubled by the three purities secret art splitting of divine sense. Chapter 18:12. When there were no fetters in his heart, his state of mind would naturally improve. Originally, Yang Chen had the state of mind of a great principal golden immortal. Now it was just letting go of his suppressed thoughts. It was too simple. In the sea of consciousness, the white light ball seemed to feel the freedom in Yang Chen's heart. It shook violently, and then began to crazily pour out the refined spiritual awareness. The pure and flawless spiritual awareness quickly filled Yang Chen's sea of consciousness. The three purities secret art began to run wildly. No longer worried about any spiritual awareness splitting like the driest sponge, it absorbed these spiritual awareness hungrily. The sea of consciousness also began to expand like a balloon. With the spiritual awareness of a great principal golden immortal as a supplement, an endless stream of pure spiritual awareness could be absorbed. The three purities secret art showed great power under this condition. The spiritual awareness that was released was absorbed as much as it could be. After being assimilated by the three purities secret art, it quickly became Yang Chen's spiritual awareness. Human Immortal Grade 3, Human Immortal Grade 4, Human Immortal Grade 5, Human Immortal Grade 6, all the way. It was like a supercar on the highway, soaring all the way. Finally, it stopped at the peak of Human Immortal. The split of the spiritual awareness that Yang Chen had been worried about before did not appear. At first, Yang Chen was still surprised, but soon understood. Before, his cultivation base was only the human immortal grade 3, and his spiritual awareness was the heaven immortal grade 3, which exceeded 2 realms, and his spiritual awareness was on the verge of splitting. Now, Yang Chun was already the earth immortal grade 1, and the spiritual awareness of the heaven immortal peak did not exceed his own spiritual power cultivation base too much, and it was not the time to split. Unknowingly, another half a year had passed. If people knew that Yang Chen's spiritual power cultivation base had jumped directly from the human immortal grade 3 to the earth immortal grade 1 in just 10 months, and his spiritual awareness cultivation base had rushed to the heaven immortal peak, it was not known how many people would shout that it was impossible. More and more spiritual power had passed through the cyan jade array disk, and Yang Chun could clearly feel it. This was not controlled by himself, but the natural growth of the cyan jade array disk after a period of time. He didn't know if this was a flaw in the disk or a deliberate design, but Yang Chun couldn't help but look at Li Cheng, who had been guarding him. In the gathering place of the monsters, even if there was a sea-pouring jasper to cover the traces, Li Cheng was not assured that Yang Chun would stay here alone, so he had been guarding Yang Chun. Yang Chun's eyes looked over, and Li Cheng immediately felt the doubts in his eyes. More demonic beasts have entered the spirit trapping formation. Li Cheng seemed to know all of Yang Chen's thoughts. With just one sentence, he explained Yang Chen's current puzzled situation. Because Yang Chen's cultivation had increased recently, his divine sense had soared. Although his spiritual power had increased greatly, he could barely cope with it. However, Yang Chun also knew that if more demonic beasts entered, then Yang Chun would still face a tragedy. The only correct way was to continue to improve his cultivation, whether it was spiritual power or spiritual awareness. He could only continue to improve. Yang Chun has never encountered such pressure since his rebirth. Perhaps there was when Luo Yuan was chasing him, but at that time, Yang Chun relied on the high speed of the shuttle. Coupled with the support of the best Great Spirit Stone, he did not worry about being caught up at all. But now, once his own cultivation base was not enough, he would be blown up by the crazy power. Li Cheng had begun to take Yang Chun to the periphery. Before, Yang Chun's improvement was too critical and he couldn't move, but now there was no such scruples. It was not safe here, so it was better to go to a safe place and slowly refine it. Seeing that Yang Chun had entered the cultivation upgrade again, and at the same time had to refine the entrance of the monster space, Li Cheng's face showed a mysterious smile. Your cultivation is too orthodox. It's good to be steady, but sometimes cultivation also needs some pressure and changes in order to have better improvement. While controlling the sea-pouring jasper cup to move forward, Li Cheng said to himself, and was not afraid that Yang Chun would hear him. Yang Chun could no longer hear Li Cheng's words. His energy had been completely restrained by the improvement of his cultivation base and the exit of the refining space, and he had no time to care about other things. That is, Li Cheng was by his side. If it was someone else, Yang Chun might not dare to have such confidence. Before, Yang Chun and Li Cheng both judged that the exit of the monster space surrounded by the formation was a trap, and they still think the same until now. Although the exit of the monster space really exists, it does not mean that this is the real hub. The final part of Li Cheng's analysis of the formation, I was in the trial site. To be exact, it should be in the location of the monster space exit. However, if you really want to find clues here, you will either be killed by the two confusing formations or be surrounded by the Xian immortal monster beasts and die of exhaustion. Yang Chun still found the flaw from the size of the earth dragon when it appeared. Since the formation I was in the trial site, maybe it was not just concentrated in the core area, but spread throughout the trial site. The outermost defensive array formation was the true defensive array formation that concealed the ceiling array formation underneath. As a spiritual channel, Yang Chun was under great pressure at the moment. A small scar had begun to appear on his body every once in a while, and then it was repaired by the efficacy of the powerful merit elixir. This process repeated itself. Li Cheng next to him just paid attention to this and did not help. If Yang Chun could survive this, he would have a more brilliant golden road in the future. If he still needed Li Cheng's help, then no matter how talented he was before, After all, he was just a cultivator who could not take on a big responsibility. At most, he had a better aptitude, but he had no chance to be outstanding. On the contrary, the 24 Ponlai Divine wood monsters lived up to the name of the Divine Wood. So far, no matter how huge the spiritual power was, they always formed a formation and firmly protected Yangchen in it, and they did not see anything wrong. As for Xiao Tian, he was secretly taking advantage of this powerful spiritual power to refine the two dragon palaces together. Only Yangchen and the great Yin Yang 5 Elements flying sword were really under tremendous pressure. Despite being in danger, Yangchen still had a huge opportunity. This spiritual power, even if he could only absorb 1/10,000th of it, it would be a great supplement for Yangchen. What heavenly, immortal level spiritual veins, 100 of them added up were not as good as 1/10,000th of this spiritual power. Anyway, Yangchen was also forcibly improving his own cultivation under pressure. In the future, he would forcibly suppress it and recultivate. So at this time, he did not have to worry about what would happen if his cultivation base improved too fast. He was madly absorbing and improving, and only after the refining was completed, he would enjoy the beauty of breaking and building. Such a good opportunity. In addition to improving his cultivation base, if he did not refine his own magic weapons, it would be a waste of this heaven-sent opportunity. Without saying anything, he started refining. Chapter 18:13. The great Yin Yang 5 Elements flying sword was Yangchen's life source flying sword. In fact, the life source flying sword was only the immortal beheading blade, and the other 9 flying swords were the sword souls of the 7th metal flying sword immortal beheading blade. However, since it was a sword soul, it was already regarded as one, and Yangchen had no intention of separating them at all, so they were all counted as the life source flying sword. The immortal beheading blade has been strengthened several times before, and now it was no longer a trivial matter. There was the core of the demon continent, and even the entrance of the immortal beheading stage was refined on it. Although these 2 space entrances were small, they had already given the immortal beheading blade the ability to cut open some space. Coupled with the bonus of Xiao Tian, there was basically nothing in the spiritual world that could resist the sharpness of the immortal beheading blade. At most, the difference was a little faster or a little slower. Now that Yangchen has made his second primordial spirit as the spirit of the immortal beheading blade, Yangchen doesn't have to worry about the impact of these spiritual powers on the immortal beheading blade for the time being. In the future, with Yangchen's recultivation, he would definitely refine the immortal beheading blade. So now that there is such a huge spiritual power to use, it would be unreasonable not to refine it. Heavenly Spirit Treasure Refining Secret Art, Earth Fiend Sacrificial Formation Secret Art, Universe Treasure Raising Secret Art, one by one in the same order, without stopping at all. Presumably, with such a non-stop spiritual power scouring and 3 kinds of refining secret art, sacrificial refining, the immortal beheading blade could directly improve by 1 grade. At that time, the monster beast space exit would also be refined into the immortal beheading blade, invincible in the spiritual world. In addition to the immortal beheading blade, the other great Yin Yang 5 Elements flying sword was the same. Yangchen's great Yin Yang 5 Elements secret art could clearly distinguish the Yin and Yang 5 elements of spiritual power, and each kind of spiritual power would carefully refine the flying sword of its respective attribute. Not to mention anything else, just the great spiritual power scouring under the 3 kinds of refining secret art would have great benefits for these flying swords. The second thing to refine was the Golden Bell, which was Yangchen's strongest defensive magic weapon so far. For a long time, Yangchen simply used the Universe Treasure Nurturing art to refine it. He didn't use his spiritual force to cleanse it, so only 4 dragon-shaped shadows appeared. The Golden Bell itself was now transformed into an armor on Yangchen's body. The huge spiritual power flowed through the Golden Bell almost non-stop, and it also helped Yangchen absorb some spiritual power. In less than a year, the 5th dragon pattern had already begun to show some horns. The herb garden was a big source of spiritual energy, so there was no reason to let go of this opportunity and look for spiritual veins in the future. Fortunately, Zhu and Bai were the tool spirits in the medicine garden, so Yang Chun didn't have to worry too much. As long as he paid a little attention to it, he wouldn't let the spiritual power be too urgent. The rest would naturally be taken care of by Zhu and Bai. Relatively speaking, Yang Chun did not put too much effort into the shuttle and the profound spirit furnace. Neither of these two things could be improved with simple spiritual power refining, and Yang Chun would not waste this effort and energy. The days were spent in this extremely boring cultivation and refining. Occasionally, there would be a little bit of dull embellishment for a period of time. The 6th grade merit Ganoderma mushroom jade pill that Yang Chun had previously refined was being consumed at the rate of almost 2 months, and it was rapidly decreasing. Yang Chun had already become a bloody man at this moment, and there were constantly small wounds that burst open and then repaired. Although there was not much bleeding each time, there were too many wounds, and the whole person had been dyed red by his own blood. Every time the body burst open and then repaired, it was like a process of heavenly tribulation tempering the body. Yang Chen's body was getting stronger and stronger under this constant tempering. At least 50% of the essence of the yellow, turban strongman body refining technique has been exerted. It must be known that Yang Chen was only an earth immortal cultivation base. The true essence of the yellow, turban strongman body refining technique was definitely in the immortal world when he reached the golden immortal or even the great principle golden immortal. It can be imagined how important this kind of spiritual power refining has been in the past few years. Yang Chen didn't even know how much time had passed. He only knew that the cultivation, sacrificial refining cultivation, refining the space exit. Unconsciously, his cultivation base had reached a new height. In just 20 years, his spiritual power cultivation was the 5th grade of the Earth Immortal, and his spiritual awareness cultivation was the 2nd grade of the Xian Immortal. It was not known how many people in the world wanted to cultivate to this point, but they could only exhaust their efforts to cultivate for hundreds of years, and they may not necessarily have such an effect. Yang Chun only took a short period of 20 years to cross this chasm-like gap. At this time, the spiritual power that Yang Chun could control had exceeded 100 times or more than at the beginning, and the speed of refining the space exit was significantly accelerated. The overall process was very normal, and it seemed that everything was under control. The only trouble was that Yang Chen's 6th grade virtue, Ganoderma pill, was almost exhausted, and there were only 2 left in his hand. According to the current speed, after 4 months at most, Yang Chun would not be able to use the medicinal power, and he would have to divert some of his attention to heal himself. If this was the case, it would not be too much trouble. The problem was that when Yang Chun tried to use the cyan jade formation plate to adjust the spiritual power torrent a little smaller, he found that the cyan jade formation plate couldn't do it. This array plate could only adjust the spiritual power, but not the small. Perhaps it was because Li Cheng spent too little time and the arrangement was too hasty, resulting in such a result. After all, the thinking of normal people would definitely increase more and more spiritual power with the improvement of their cultivation base, and it would not decrease. No one thought that such a problem would happen. The panic only lasted for a moment, and Yang Chun immediately calmed down. Facing the threat of death all these years made Yang Chen's nerves as tough as the old bamboo in the deep mountains. It was not enough to describe it as Mount Tai collapsing in front of him. There were still 4 months before the elixirs were exhausted, and there was still time to think about how to deal with it. For the time being, he could first maintain the current spiritual power overflow and try to improve his cultivation base a little within 4 months, and maybe he could solve this problem. It was a good idea, but unfortunately, after Yang Chen worked hard to improve his cultivation a little, he was shocked to find that the spiritual power in the cyan jade formation plate did not need Yang Chen's control, and the spiritual power automatically increased by a corresponding amount. At this time, even if Yang Chen was slow, he understood that all this was deliberately designed by Li Cheng, and it was not the result of carelessly refining because of the lack of time. For Li Cheng, Yang Chun had absolute trust, and he did not believe that Li Cheng wanted to take this opportunity to harm him. To be honest, it was too easy for Li Cheng to kill Yang Chun, and he could even do it at any time, and Yang Chun did not have extra power to defend against external attacks. Since Li Cheng did not want to harm him, but made such an arrangement, then there must be some other intention. As for what the intention was, only Yang Chun could slowly figure it out. But for now, Yang Chun had to deal with this crisis first. Chapter 1814. All of Yang Chun's energy is now involved in cultivation and refining the exit of the space. Of course, there's a small part of it that is sacrificially refining the magic weapon. Without the 6th grade merit pills, Yang Chun had to stop sacrificially refining the magic weapon and focus on healing. There was some effect, but the increase in the spiritual power obviously exceeded the growth of the cultivation base. There was still some overwhelming situation, so that Yang Chun's body finally appeared continuous wounds. Fortunately, these wounds are not big and not fatal, but if they accumulate, who knows what fatal consequences will appear. Yang Chun must rack his brains to find a solution to this problem. If this situation continues, Yang Chun can't hold on for a long time. It must be known that Yang Chun's body is now a pipe. As long as the injury is slightly more serious, the huge spiritual power will find a vent. At that time, it doesn't even matter how big this hole is, as long as there is a trace, it is enough to crush the entire channel. At the moment of life and death, Yang Chun suddenly flashed a cultivation method, the merit chapter. With the merit chapter, whether it is refining a magic weapon or alchemy, it can have a miraculous effect. It should also have a miraculous effect in cultivation, especially in saving lives. It is related to his own life. Yang Chun is not stingy with the merit at all. The cultivation method chosen is not the Great Yin and Yang 5 Elements secret art. Although the Great Yin and Yang 5 Elements secret art can improve faster, the most important thing for Yang Chun now is to heal. Therefore, the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, which can temper the body, has become the only choice for Yang Chun. In the past, Yang Chun had considered the possibility of using the merit chapter to cultivate. Now, it is just putting it into practice. Relatively speaking, except for the pressure, there is no other concern. Originally, Yang Chun thought that it would take a lot of twists and turns, but the cultivation was very smooth, unprecedentedly smooth. The massive merit value allowed Yang Chun to quickly find out the key to cultivation after wasting a lot of it at the beginning, and also let Yang Chun thoroughly understand that the merit value he consumed was definitely worth it. The cultivation that consumes the merit value is much more comfortable than the ordinary cultivation. At least the physical feeling is more comfortable. Of course, what Yang Chun wants most now is not the feeling of cultivation, but the effect of healing. In this regard, the merit chapter also did not disappoint Yang Chun. The subtle scars that had not healed on his body after a cycle of the yellow turban strongman body refining technique disappeared a small part. When Yang Chun calmed down and continuously cultivated for a day, all the wounds disappeared without a trace. Although it was not as immediate as the 6th grade merit pill, the healing effect was definitely in line with Yang Chun's requirements. As for other cultivation effects, Yang Chun could not test them now. He could only wait until the exit of the refining space was completed. It could be so smooth. In addition to Yang Chun's willingness to give up the merit value, there was another most important reason. Yang Chun had no worries. Yang Chun firmly believes that once he has signs of trouble, Li Cheng will never stand by and watch. For this reason, Yang Chun doesn't have to worry about what will happen if he doesn't succeed when he is cultivating. When he is full of confidence, no matter what he does, the success rate will be relatively higher. Because of this reason, Yang Chun did not have to worry about what would happen if he did not succeed. In the case of full confidence, no matter what he did, the success rate would be relatively high. Yang Chun didn't expect to encounter this situation. If he was not careful, he would lose decades of time. Yang Chun did not expect to encounter this kind of situation. If he was not careful, he would lose decades of time. It was just a few decades. The cultivators could pass it in a casual retreat. It was just a few decades, and cultivators could easily pass it with a simple seclusion. The problem was that he also encountered an accident in his cultivation. Originally, according to Yang Chen's plan, it would take at least 800 or 900 years to cultivate from the third grade of the human immortal to the current realm. Now, Yang Chen had to use a batch of merit 1,000 years pills to forcibly improve his spiritual power cultivation base. Afterwards, in order to eliminate this effect, he had to start all over again. This feeling was not comfortable. But now that things have come to this point, there is no way to complain. Yang Chen can only face it. Fortunately, under the guidance of Li Cheng, Yang Chen eliminated his worries about the split of the three purity secret art. His spiritual awareness cultivation base could rise unrestricted. He no longer had to worry about the spiritual awareness of the great principle golden immortal bursting his sea of consciousness, nor did he have to rely on alchemy or unlocking the seal to solve it. He just had to increase his spiritual awareness cultivation base. After solving the problem of his injury, Yang Chen once again entered the boring refining process. His cultivation was still steadily improving, and the spiritual power through was getting more and more, and the refining process was getting faster and faster. Soon, Yang Chen noticed that the refining was coming to an end. At this time, Yang Chen's spiritual power cultivation base had reached the peak of the Earth Immortal, and his spiritual awareness cultivation base had exceeded the 5th grade of the Xian Immortal. And all of this skyrocketing happened in just a few decades. After calculating the time, Yang Chen was very worried that he would face the Earth Immortal tribulation when he refined the exit of the space. In the midst of Yang Chen's incomparable worry, the refining process was finally completed completely. With a long breath, Yang Chen opened his eyes. Immediately, he was shocked. In addition to elder brother Li Cheng, his wives and concubines were all there. During the whole refining process, Yang Chen did not explore the situation outside his body, so he didn't know what happened. Suddenly seeing his wives and concubines, he was naturally surprised. Without waiting for Yang Chen to say anything, Sun Qingxue had already thrown herself into Yang Chen's arms with a smile and tears, crying. With great difficulty, Yang Chen coaxed Sun Qingxue, only to find that other people's faces were also deeply worried. Looking down at his body, he immediately understood. Yang Chen's current appearance was too terrifying. His whole body was blood red, as if he had suffered a lot of eye injuries. At first glance, it was really frightening. Especially when Yang Chen's women saw all of this, it was very likely that they were watching the whole process of Yang Chen's wounds and recovery. It was absolutely inevitable to worry. Don't worry, I'm fine. After Yang Chen gave the women an affirmative answer with a smile, he flashed into the Dragon Palace with the women. He had to wash his body well. After Gao Yu personally served Yang Chen to wash and change into a set of clean clothes, Yang Chen began to ask how everyone got together. Elder brother Li Cheng found us and made an appointment with us. When the experience was almost done, we gathered here. Gao Yu replied quickly, and then added, Elder brother Li Cheng brought Murong and the others directly here, saying that he needed their help, and now they are still busy. Just now, Yang Chen only saw all his women, but now he found that the Murong sisters did not follow him into the Dragon Palace, but were outside. Yang Chen couldn't help but be curious. What did Li Cheng want the Murong sisters to do? Chapter 1815. What else can we do? Li Cheng looked at Yang Chen, who appeared in front of him with a new set of clothes, and replied angrily, The last seal of the formation, eye of the formation. There are only a few of them without the support of a master. What else can you say? This was the location of the last seal formation. If he wanted to unseal it, he would need a large amount of spiritual awareness output. The Murong sisters were the people Li Cheng chose to unseal it. There were two reasons why Li Cheng chose the Murong sisters. On the one hand, it was because among the women of Yang Chen, the Murong sisters were the few who did not have a Xian Immortal master by their side so far. On the other hand, it was because the combined strength of the sisters exceeded the strength of the other women alone, so they were the most suitable candidates. The latter reason was the real reason for Li Cheng to make a decision. The former one was just to help Yang Chen solve a small problem, and it was not a big problem. The real deciding factor was the strength of the five sisters. The Murong sisters had never been separated from each other since the beginning of their cultivation. Whether it was seclusion or experience, the five of them acted together. Even when they married, the five of them married Yang Chun together. Basically, the five sisters would never be separated again in this life. The last super strong formation, I required a very strong spiritual awareness. According to Li Cheng's estimation, even if a person was as strong as Yang Chun, he might not be able to control it. On the contrary, the five elements' great formation of the five women might increase the possibility of success. Of course, it was only a possibility. At least with the current spiritual awareness cultivation of the Murong sisters, it was still a lot worse. Even if the five women worked together to use the five elements' great formation, they might not succeed. In the end, at this point, Yang Chun could not watch the five women work in vain, so he could only think of a way on the highest mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra. When he was cultivating with Lady Fanghua and the 30 maids, Yang Chun had already improved the highest mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra once, and it could be cultivated by many people at the same time. Now was the right time to use it at this time. Husband, your cultivation? When the Murong sisters saw Yang Chun, joy flashed in their eyes. Then, everyone's eyes focused on Yang Chun. Even if they were constantly outputting their spiritual awareness to unlock the seal, the five women could also find that Yang Chun's cultivation was soaring a bit strange. The Murong sisters were not the first to ask this question. Gao Yu, Gong Sunling, and the others had already asked this question once in the Dragon Palace. Yang Chun had already explained it once, so he patiently explained it to the Murong sisters again. Don't worry about your husband. Li Cheng's words rang out after Yang Chun finished speaking. It made people want to beat him up. His cultivation is too smooth. It's good that there are such twists and turns. Humans are the spirit of all living things. How can it be a smooth journey for a lifetime? Don't worry. I guarantee that nothing bad will happen to your husband. Regarding Li Cheng's words, the women also believed 90%. The problem was if it wasn't something big, could it be something small? That wasn't good, right? Don't worry. Yang Chun also spoke up. This time, I was fated to meet him. Maybe it will be a blessing in disguise. Isn't this what cultivation experience is all about? Their husbands' words finally eased the worries of the women. Next, it was naturally Yang Chun's spiritual awareness dual cultivation with the goddesses. All his wives and concubines were there, so Yang Chun didn't have to look for them one by one. After explaining the improved supreme mystery Yin-Yang Heart Sutra to everyone, he let the women digest and comprehend it for a long time. Yang Chun's current spiritual awareness cultivation had soared to the 5th grade of the Xian Immortal realm. Although he didn't have to worry about the spiritual awareness cultivation rising too fast and losing his state of mind like his spiritual power cultivation, it was also good to slow down the momentum of the rapid rise. In particular, he could help his women improve, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The Murong sisters couldn't relax at will, but they could only use 4 people on duty at a time, and the other one would take turns to participate in the spiritual awareness dual cultivation. They were all his women, so of course, Yang Chun spared no effort to improve the cultivation of the women. When the cycle was completed, the women's spiritual awareness cultivation had been promoted to the 1st grade of the Xian Immortal realm, directly crossing 2 major levels. Among them, Zhou Xianying's realm was the highest, reaching the 2nd grade of the Xian Immortal realm. This time, the efficiency of the Murong sisters' unsealing increased greatly, and the output of spiritual awareness became more stable and powerful. Li Cheng had been observing the sealing formation. Seeing such a situation, he couldn't help but smile. Seeing Li Cheng smile, everyone was relieved. After experiencing this spiritual awareness dual cultivation, Yang Chun's spiritual awareness cultivation that had soared also decreased slightly, falling to the peak of the 3rd grade of the Xian Immortal realm, almost reaching the 4th grade of the Xian Immortal realm. Yang Chun was no longer worried about his spiritual awareness splitting. In the future, his spiritual awareness cultivation would definitely improve rapidly. There was no big problem with the sealing formation, but there was a big problem with Yang Chun's cultivation. In just a few decades, he directly rose from the third grade of the human immortal realm to the peak of the earth immortal realm. Even Li Cheng didn't have such a fast speed. The problem was very big. Even if Yang Chun used the merit chapter again, there was no guarantee that there would be no problems with his next cultivation. The only solution was that Yang Chun and the women had been mentally prepared to break and rebuild and forcibly disperse their cultivation and recultivate. However, it would be a pity if this peak earth immortal cultivation was dispersed in vain. Yang Chun didn't conceal his relationship with Lady Feng Hua. At this moment, he also proposed to Gao Yu to bring Lady Feng Hua and the others. Even if he dispersed his cultivation, it was better to disperse it on them than to waste it. In this regard, the women had no objection. In fact, as early as when Yang Chun was about to refine the exit of the Monster Bee space, Li Cheng had already told him about this and even sent someone to deliver a letter to Lady Feng Hua. He believed that Lady Feng Hua would come in a few days. It seemed that everything had been arranged by Li Cheng. One ring after another, one action led to the next action. Yang Chun was already numb to Li Cheng's comprehensive plan. Now Yang Chun had no doubt that the situation he was facing was completely designed by Li Cheng. It's just that Yang Chun did not question Li Cheng. He only needed to believe that Li Cheng would not harm him. Lady Feng Hua arrived after 10 days. When she saw Gao Yu and the other women, without saying a word, she took the female disciples and respectfully saluted the ladies. Now Lady Feng Hua's attitude was very positive. She positioned herself as Yang Chen's housekeeper, and the 30 beautiful disciples would be the maids of the Yang family in the future. The women were very satisfied with Lady Feng Hua's attitude. After accepting the housekeeper and the maids whose cultivation was almost higher than all of them except Zhou Xianying, Yang Chun finally reached the time to disperse his cultivation. At this time, if Yang Chun didn't disperse his cultivation, it was estimated that the Earth Immortal Tribulation would come soon. Chapter 1816. Yang Chen's cultivation base relied on several thousand years merit pills and the massive spiritual power in the Cyan Jade Formation Plate to advance to this realm. It seemed that the realm was very high, but the foundation was not solid at all. Don't look at Yang Chun, who could survive 1,000 times the human immortal tribulation under various conditions. Maybe he could also survive the next Earth immortal tribulation under the same conditions. But if he really reached that point, some things would be fixed by the heavenly tribulation. If he wanted to start over again, the price to pay might be several times more than before the heavenly tribulation. Of course, Yang Chun couldn't make this kind of mistake. So as soon as Lady Feng Hua and the maids arrived, Yang Chun immediately sent them to the Dragon Palace. For a long time to come, they would all be very worried about the sudden rise in cultivation base. There was no other arrangement on Li Cheng's side. Now he was just waiting for the Morong sisters to unlock the seal and release the master of the Formation Eye. After completely destroying this arrangement of the Zhao family, he would talk about other things. As for the B space exit that Yang Chun had refined, Yang Chun would be powerless for a long time to come. Don't look at Yang Chun having refined the space exit. If he really wanted to forcibly close it, the difficulty would definitely be far more difficult than closing the small space point at the core of the Demon Continent. In the core of the Demon Continent, Yang Chun only had to close the passage through which the demonic chi came, and Yang Chun had to fight against countless monsters above the 5th grade of Xian Immortal. Even if the space exit had been completely refined, refining was refining, and complete control was complete control. With Yang Chen's current cultivation base, it was impossible to close the space exit perfectly. Not to mention that Yang Chun would have to disperse his cultivation base, and his cultivation base would be further reduced. At that time, it would be good to be able to maintain the connection with the space exit. If he wanted to close it, he could only wait for Yang Chun to recultivate this time, and he had to get at least the level of a Heaven Immortal. Li Cheng was very clear about Yang Chen's situation, so he had no special requirements for him. It wasn't easy to refine the exit in such a short period of time. A large part of the Zhao family's arrangements had been destroyed, and they were just waiting for the seal to be undone. No matter how elaborate the arrangements were, or how powerful they were, It was debatable how effective they could be after the ceiling formation was destroyed in a completely abnormal manner. There was no need for Yang Chun to take risks, so Li Cheng generously let Yang Chun solve his own problems. How low should I lower my cultivation? Although Yang Chun had already made up his mind to cripple a part of his cultivation, he still asked Li Cheng for advice. In this regard, Yang Chun had no experience at all. Since Li Cheng had borrowed the Demon B Space's exit to set up such a training ground, he must have had his own considerations. If I were you, I would completely cripple my cultivation and cultivate from scratch. It would have been better if Li Cheng had not answered. The moment he opened his mouth, everyone was shocked. Completely cripple him? Starting from zero? Even if he knew that Li Cheng's intention was to let Yang Chun be destroyed and then rebuilt, but to completely cripple him, this was a bit extreme, right? Could it be that lowering his cultivation base to the human immortal first grade could not achieve the same effect? You can do it yourself. Li Cheng didn't say anything more, but finally reminded him, think about the feeling of cultivating the body refining technique in your later stage. Li Cheng's reminder made Yang Chen fall into contemplation. When cultivating the yellow turban strongman body refining technique in the later stage, Yang Chun used the merit chapter. In just a few decades, Yang Chun thought that he would not improve the yellow turban strongman body refining technique in the spiritual world, but it went from the early stage to the middle stage. The massive spirit power scouring directly acted as a tool of tempering that was more powerful than the tribulation tempering body, making the yellow turban strongman body refining technique more and more powerful. Of course, this was related to the terrifying spirit power scouring, but it also showed the powerful bonus role of the merit chapter in cultivation. Yang Chen's current spiritual power cultivation base was mainly the Great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art. All of it was the original spirit power. If it was all abolished, and he used the merit chapter when he started cultivating from the beginning, what would the result be? Some things were unimaginable. Just like Yang Chun insisted on cultivating the Great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art after his rebirth. Originally, he thought that the Great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art was already the limit that Yang Chun could imagine. At this time, Li Cheng immediately added another option. On Yang Chen's body, there was now a large number, 10 to the 72 power, of merit value, but it was only meaningful in this heavenly court. If Yang Chun always treated the profound heaven sect as an enemy, these merit points were destined to be wasted even if they were not used up. Unless Long Xian's merit monument could fully bear all the merits of Yang Chun, there would be unimaginable merits that would be useless. Rather than that, it was better to use it during cultivation. Thinking of this, Yang Chun had basically made a decision in his heart. Gao Yu and the other women were very worried. They were afraid that Yang Chun would really completely abolish his cultivation base. However, Big Brother Li Cheng's words had already hinted very clearly that it would be of great benefit to Yang Chun. Perhaps the only thing to worry about was the safety of Yang Chun during the time when Yang Chun would disperse his cultivation base and then cultivate again. The women knew that their husband had made a decision. Soon, Gao Yu and the women made an agreement. During the time when Yang Chen's cultivation base was insufficient, everyone would gather around Yang Chun to protect him. Under the worried gazes of the women, Yang Chun returned to the Dragon Palace. After spending a month with his wives and concubines, he began the process of dispersing his cultivation base. Perhaps in the eyes of others, dispersing one's cultivation base was a painful thing. However, in Yang Chen's case, it was not like this at all. The whole stage of dispersing the power became a charming and wonderful process. Starting from Lady Fenghua, the 31 beautiful women who cultivated the 1,000-color spiritual technique had sex with Yang Chun one by one. Yang Chun completely gave up his control over his spiritual power and let the women absorb it wantonly from him. As long as their bodies and cultivation base could bear it, Yang Chun would give them as much as they could absorb. The cultivation methods of the demon's sex paid attention to speed. Yang Chun had always been worried that the cultivation base would increase too fast and cause the foundation to be unstable, but it was common in the demon's sex. In the past, they had done this kind of thing a lot, and now they were all familiar with it and absorbed it happily. They all knew what Yang Chun was planning, and the women did their best. While solving the problem for their lover, they could also give their lover great enjoyment, and they could also improve their cultivation base. It was a good thing to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Whether it was Lady Feng Hua or the 30 maids, they were all immersed in it and could not extricate themselves. In this scene, in the eyes of the guardians of Taoism, Yang Qin's cultivation base began to decline steadily. Earth Immortal Peak, Earth Immortal High Stage, Earth Immortal Middle Stage, Earth Immortal Early Stage. When Yang Qin's cultivation base fell back to the human immortal level, a whole year had passed. Chapter 1817. 31 bone-eroding demonesses tried their best to absorb Yang Qin's spiritual power, but it took a whole year for Yang Qin's cultivation base to drop to the human immortal level. It seemed that the efficiency was extremely low. But don't forget, Yang Chun cultivated the Great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art, and there were 10 kinds of original spiritual power in his body. Yang Qin's spiritual power cultivation base was very balanced, and each kind of spiritual power was about the same realm. In other words, Yang Qin's spiritual power alone was equivalent to the total spiritual power of 10 masters of the same level. This was only the quantity of spiritual power, not the quality of spiritual power. Spiritual power was the original spiritual power, and it was already several levels higher than ordinary spiritual power. In addition, when Yang Chun was cultivating, he had been using the reverse Yin and Yang 5 elements to condense it. At the same time, there was the assistance of the Heavenly Spirit Treasure Refining Secret Art and the Earth Fiend Sacrificial Formation Secret Art. Each spiritual power thread was composed of 108 finer spiritual power threads. The degree of concentration and purity was beyond everyone's imagination. In the past, Lady Feng Hua and the maids had not absorbed Yang Qin's spiritual power, but those were the impure spiritual power that Yang Chun and his wives and concubines did not need after double cultivation. Now that he gave them his purest spiritual power, the women knew how powerful it was. Even Lady Feng Hua knew for the first time how powerful and terrifying her only man was before. No wonder he could resist the Yin fire tribulation when he was in the Yuanying stage. No wonder she couldn't beat him when she was in the Deshang stage. No wonder Yang Chun, a human immortal, could kill a Xian immortal master. It turned out to be like this. 31 people took turns to absorb without stopping. But even so, at the beginning, Lady Feng Hua and the others had to spare more than half a month after the first round. They had to refine and absorb the spiritual power absorbed from Yang Chun during this time. During the second round, he rested for 10 days. As Yang Chun's cultivation level decreased, it was only after half a year that he didn't have to spare any time to absorb spirit energy from Yang Chun's body day and night. Yang Chun simply became the most licentious and tyrannical ruler. He enjoyed a life of debauchery and sensual pleasures. In the following days, this kind of sensual lifestyle never stopped. Lady Feng Hua's cultivation had broken through to the 6th grade Earth Immortal realm, and the maids had also passed their earthly immortal tribulations and became true earthly immortal experts. Even the weakest among them was a 3rd stage Earth Immortal. Yang Qin alone was able to raise 31 human and immortal cultivators of the demon sect to this level. Even though everyone was mentally prepared, they still couldn't help but be surprised when it really happened. After the maids passed their earthly immortal tribulations, things became much simpler. Yang Qin's cultivation level had fallen below the earthly immortal realm, while the maids had surpassed the earthly immortal realm. Under such circumstances, the speed at which they absorbed spiritual power from Yang Qin's body became faster and faster, and Yang Qin's resistance also became weaker and weaker. Yang Qin's cultivation level decreased faster and faster. In the last 3 months, Yang Qin had become a great vehicle stage cultivator, which was comparable to some aborigines in the spiritual realm. The more time passed, the more anxious Gong Sunling and the others became, afraid that something unusual would happen at this juncture. At this time, Yang Chun was no longer a match for any of the maids. As long as any one of them had a disloyal heart, Yang Chun would die without a burial place. Lady Fanghua and the group of maids did not disappoint Yang Chen's trust. Under the nervous gaze of the madams, after the maids took another round, the one with the strongest cultivation level and the best control, Lady Fanghua, completely absorbed the last trace of spiritual power from Yang Chen's body. It was just right and did not hurt Yang Chun at all. Yang Chun became immortal at the lowest level of the cultivators in the mortal world, while Lady Fanghua was already a 7th-stage Earth Immortal expert. The other maids were at least 4th-stage Earth Immortal, and the best was 5th-stage Earth Immortal, which was very average. Lady Fanghua and the others could also use it in a short period of time, but they did not have to worry about what kind of threat the sudden increase in power would bring to them. For them, this only saved them half of the effort, and the other half required them to work harder to improve their state of mind to match the sharp increase in spiritual power cultivation. Gao Yu and the others were finally relieved, and they did not hide the look of relief from Lady Fanghua and the others. Madams worry too much. Lady Fanghua's cultivation level was basically enough to show disdain for all the madams. Except for Zhou Xianying, the others were still in the human immortal realm, far from being a match for Lady Fanghua, and even the maid's cultivation level could not compare. Looking at the relaxed appearance of Gao Yu, Madame Fanghua smiled and said, "Even if this slave wants to hurt the master, I may not be able to hurt him." Zhou Xianying and Yang Chun had the shortest time together, so she didn't know Yang Chun very well. She immediately asked curiously why. "You will know if you look at the few things on master." Lady Fanghua did not answer Zhou Xianying's question directly, but pointed to Yang Chen's side. Yang Chun had become immortal, and there was no spiritual power in his body, so the magic weapon Chinquin bag and the like on his body could no longer be controlled. They appeared directly and fell beside Yang Chun. Even the merit ring appeared. At this moment, on Yang Chen's wrist, there was a black bracelet on one side, and on the other side was a simple bracelet transformed by the Earth Dragon. A Chinquin bag fell on the ground next to him, but the bottle medicine garden was pressed on Yang Chen's leg. The immortal beheading blade was turned around by Xiao Tian, but there was an armor of the golden bell on his body. I forgot to say that these magic weapons of Yang Chun, when Yang Chun refined the exit of the space after the massive spiritual power scouring, the effect was outstanding. The 8 dragon patterns of the golden bell have all appeared. The bottle medicine garden absorbed enough spiritual power, enough for thousands of years without replenishment. Even the immortal beheading blade had been improved, and Xiao Tian enjoyed it with relish. Everyone's eyes were focused on one thing. Everyone knew the weight of the bottle medicine garden. It was a super heavy magic weapon that even Hou Yunjinghu couldn't pick up. At this moment, it was pressed on the leg of the mortal Yang Chun, but Yang Chun was unscathed. What did this mean? The only thing that could be explained was that even if Yang Chun had become immortal, his body, which had been tempered by the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, still contained unparalleled power. Even a master of the peak fairy immortal like Jing, who couldn't resist the physical strength and a strong body that could support this kind of power, and even completely ignore the cultivation realm of Lady Fanghua. What kind of unparalleled power was this? Looking at her husband and lover, she imagined these things in her mind. Even if her husband became immortal, he was the most special one in the world. Chapter 1818. This was only the weight of the pure bottle medicine garden. The weight of the earth dragon and the black bracelet had not been calculated by the women. If the women knew the weight of these two things, they would have to multiply it by at least 3, which was a reliable concept. Lady Fanghua and the maids did not discover this because of the pure bottle medicine garden. They were close to Yang Chen's skin. They were very familiar with Yang Chen's body. How could they not discover that Yang Chun had been controlling his muscles from the beginning to the end? That kind of care, as if they were the most fragile eggshell, made them feel warm in their hearts. At the same time, they guessed some of Yang Chen's strength in this situation. This was something that the 31 beauties, including Lady Fanghua, could not imagine. They never thought that Yang Qin's spiritual power would be so powerful when his whole body's spiritual power was abolished. He was worthy of being their lover. He was so powerful that people were intoxicated. When Yang Qin, who was in a mortal state, was taken out of the Dragon Palace by Gao Yu and appeared in front of Li Cheng was not surprised at all. He knew that Yang Qin would abolish all his cultivation. At this moment, Yang Qin was showing him how big Yang Qin's heart was. Where did you get this? Li Cheng's eyes fell directly on the black bracelet on Yang Qin's wrist. His eyes lit up and he asked, "In the Fire Dragon Palace." Yang Qin did not hide it and said it directly. But Yang Qin was also a little strange. Yang Qin had worn this bracelet for a long time. Li Cheng should have seen it. Why'd he ask this? While puzzled, he couldn't help but look down. That, Li Cheng glanced at it and showed a look of sudden realization. It turns out to be so. Yang Qin noticed at this time that the black bracelet was a little different from before. It was just a black and smooth, unknown metal bracelet, which also served as a chinko and bag. Now, there were many fine patterns on the surface, and it looked much more beautiful and delicate. How could this be? Yang Qin couldn't understand how this change happened and couldn't help but ask. It has to do with Master's condition. Li Cheng gave a simple explanation. This is the true appearance. The higher the Master's cultivation, the more simple the bracelet will appear. There was such a situation. Yang Qin understood a part of it and knew the reason for the change. However, Yang Qin was still confused as to why such a change had occurred. Your luck isn't just heaven-defying. Li Cheng first sighed in admiration, then explained, it's a very special material. It's very rare, heavy and hard. It's refined from the belly of a golden crow. After it's refined, it will naturally have exquisite patterns. However, when the refiner's cultivation reaches the human immortal realm, these patterns will disappear. Unfortunately, it was only used to forge an interspatial bracelet. It's a waste of talent. Li Cheng immediately shook his head and said to Yang Qin, if there's a chance, you should refine it again. Even if you can refine it into your saber, that would be good. What's the use? Although Li Cheng explained some of the characteristics of the material used in the bracelet, he still didn't explain everything clearly. This made Yang Qin half understand and half confused. Knowing that Li Cheng didn't want to say too much, Yang Qin still asked about the use. There's a small circle, the one called the diamond chakram. Li Cheng pursed his lips indifferently and answered sloppily, it's made from this material. What do you think it's used for? Diamond chakram? Yang Qin almost cried out. That was a super powerful offensive magic treasure of Taishang Laojun. No matter how powerful an expert was, they couldn't withstand a single attack from that small circle. It was actually made from this material. I've picked up a treasure. Yang Qin instantly understood why Li Cheng praised his luck. If this material could really be refined into the immortal beheading saber, then what else could resist the immortal beheading saber? Even if the immortal beheading saber didn't have the sharpness to cut through space, just its weight alone could smash the opponent to death. Thinking of this, Yang Qin couldn't help but want to drool. He was immortal now, so he really couldn't control this kind of physiological activity. You don't have to think about it now. Wait until you really reach the Earth immortal realm, then think of a way to refine it. Li Cheng then added, then it's not something that can be refined with ordinary flames. At that time, use the fire seed I gave you. When Li Cheng mentioned the diamond chakram, Gao Yu, Gong Sunling, and the other women were confused. Obviously, they didn't know what the diamond chakram was. Only Light Sound Fairy, Zhou Xianying, seemed to have heard this term somewhere. She frowned and racked her brains to remember where she heard it, but she still couldn't get it. Murong and the others will be able to unlock this seal in about 10 years. What are you going to do then? Since Yang Qin came out, Li Cheng didn't mind asking one or two more questions. The seal formation and the exit of the demon beast space could be said to be Yang Qin and Li Cheng's secrets. It seemed that Li Cheng didn't have any good suggestions at this time. Take everyone back to Chunyang Palace first, and then slowly cultivate. Yang Qin already had a plan. If these things didn't happen, Yang Qin's plan would be the same. After the trial, they would return to Chunyang Palace. Now that the Tao, Devil, and Monster Sex sect had promised Yang Qin to take care of Chunyang Palace, and the 5 core executives of each sect, including the sect leader, had made a heart demon oath. So, at least before the devil tribulation in the spiritual realm, Chunyang Palace would be safe. Even if the devil tribulation broke out in the spiritual realm, Chunyang Palace would still be safe. In his previous life, Linyang River and Hatred Parting Sea were the strongholds of the cultivators' counterattack. Sunset Rock was the front line of the cultivators' resistance, but it had never been lost. Now there was Sheeping Mountain on the periphery. The 5 major sects had expanded their branches here, and there was another natural barrier. At that time, whether it was to protect their own sect's branches or to fulfill the promise to Chunyang Palace, the major sect would unite and try to completely eliminate the danger. Of course, it was not advisable to rely on others for safety. With Brother Li Cheng's suggestion for the Earth Dragon, for the safety of Chunyang Palace, Yang Chun even wanted to immediately send the core of Chunyang Palace to the belly of the Earth Dragon. Unfortunately, the only obstacle now was that Yang Chun had completely lost his cultivation. His cultivation was seriously insufficient. Whether it was sacrificially refining the immortal beheading saber or refining the cave residents, it was not something that Yang Chun could do now. Brother, according to your estimation, how long will it take for my cultivation to reach the level of human immortal? Yang Chun couldn't help but ask the question that he had always wanted to know. He was eager to know the answer now. The length of recovery was also related to the things that Yang Chun was worried about. When could he start to take action? He had to pay attention to it. Chapter 18-19. How many years did you cultivate in the beginning to have this cultivation base? Even if you start over, the normal cultivation time is reduced by half. How long will it take you to calculate it yourself? Li Cheng thought a little and gave Yang Chun an answer that was not a definite answer. According to this calculation, it would take at least hundreds of years for Yang Chun to return to the human immortal cultivation base. Perhaps in these days, Yang Chun could only watch others dance on the stage of the spiritual world, and he would act as an outsider audience. However, when you cultivate in the mortal world, the spiritual pressure is not so great. If you start from the beginning in the spiritual world, you will definitely advance by leaps and bounds in the beginning, and the speed should be faster. Fortunately, Li Cheng added a little, which made Yang Chun and the women feel better. Next, Yang Chun did not start cultivating immediately, but according to the way of mortals, he cultivated in the Dragon Palace for almost half a year. After his body was completely adapted to the spiritual pressure in the Dragon Palace that was stronger than outside, he began to cultivate. During this half a year, Yang Chen's mind was not idle, but he made an article on his own cultivation method. Great Yin and Yang 5 Elements Secret Art and Merit Secret Art have been considered. This is the foundation of cultivation. Since he has recultivated, he can't still cultivate according to the old way. At least, he should add the insights of this life's cultivation to make up for the shortcomings. Heavenly Spirit Treasure Refining Secret Art and Earth Fiend Sacrificial Formation Secret Art were also added and integrated into the original cultivation method. Yang Chun was afraid that he did not consider it comprehensively enough. During this period, he also pulled Li Cheng to discuss it several times, and after confirming that there were no problems, he decided on the final plan. This is the cultivation method you want to recultivate. When Yang Chun discussed the final cultivation method plan after his summary with Li Cheng seemed to be a little dissatisfied. What about your body refining technique? Spiritual power is regarded as the inner sect, and the body refining technique is regarded as the outer sect. Do you still plan to separate the inner and outer sects and cultivate separately? Looking at Li Cheng's appearance, it seemed that he blamed Yang Chun for not living up to expectations, and he almost pointed at Yang Chen's nose and scolded him. Li Cheng's reminder suddenly made Yang Chun feel as if he was suddenly enlightened, and his mind instantly opened up a lot. Yes, since he has already recultivated, why should he follow the previous routine? Since the Heavenly Spirit Treasure Refining Secret Art and the Earth Fiend Sacrificial Formation Secret Art can be integrated into the Great Yin and Yang 5 Element Secret Art, why can't the Yellow Turban Strongman Body Refining Technique? Cultivating both internal and external cultivation was the way to go. Then Yang Chun spent almost a year to integrate the yellow turban strongman body refining technique into his cultivation method. According to Yang Chen's estimation, cultivating like this would consume a huge amount of merit points for a very long period of time. However, Yang Chun no longer needed to cultivate these cultivation methods separately. He could cultivate them all at once. At this stage, according to the understanding of ordinary cultivators, it had basically reached perfection. However, after Li Cheng's reminder, Yang Chen couldn't help but think a lot more. Big brother, which one is more important in cultivation? Innate spiritual root or acquired spiritual root? Yang Chen appeared in front of Li Cheng again and asked sincerely, "You discovered the acquired spiritual root yourself, and you still ask me this question?" Li Cheng was now more and more harsh on Yang Chen. He drank the newly brewed wine of Sun Qingxue and ate the dishes that Gong Sunling had just made, but he talked to Yang Chen in a slightly dissatisfied tone. Of course, there is no difference in cultivating one kind of spiritual power. I mean, in my case, is it really good to balance the 5 elements of yin and yang? Yang Chen also realized that he had asked something wrong and changed to a more specific question. Is it possible to highlight the attribute of my innate fire spiritual root under the simultaneous cultivation of yin and yang and 5 elements? Li Cheng didn't seem to think so far. He stopped when he heard the words, frowned, and began to think carefully. The women who served next to him were also nervous. Could it be that there was a problem with what Yang Chen was thinking about? However, they couldn't answer any of Yang Chen's questions. Speaking of which, all the women were cultivation geniuses with excellent qualifications, but each of them was an extreme genius of a single attribute, and they did not know about other attributes at all. The only one with multiple attributes was Gao Yu, but she only had 2 attributes of water and fire, which cannot be compared with Yang Chen's 5 elements. What's more, Yang Chen was not only divided into the 5 elements, but also subdivided into the 5 elements of yin and yang. As Li Cheng frowned and tapped his fingers on the table, the hearts of the women trembled with Li Cheng's fingers for fear of hearing any bad answers from Li Cheng's mouth. Perhaps feeling the tension of his sister-in-law, Li Cheng suddenly stopped tapping his fingers and said with a smile, "Why are you so nervous? Your husband hasn't been cultivating like this before, and I haven't seen any problems with him." Only then did the women react. Yang Chen was just asking if he could further distinguish his innate and acquired attributes, and let the innate attributes dominate in order to be more perfect. It was not a matter of life and death. It was really not worth everyone being so nervous. But then again, this was also a confusion of concern, which showed that the women were still loyal to their husband. Being able to make so many talented and beautiful women so concerned, at least it showed that Yang Chen was doing a good job so far. Maybe there is a way, but it may cost a lot. After Li Cheng pondered for a while, he finally gave a possible conclusion. "Are you sure you are willing? What's the price?" Yang Chen asked quickly. "It will take longer to restore the original cultivation base, and the difficulty of cultivation will be higher, and..." Li Cheng's words were delayed for a while. And then he said, "It will consume a lot, at least a few boundless points, or even more. I have not tried this method." Li Cheng did not say clearly what it would consume, but Yang Chen knew that it could only consume merit, and it would consume a few boundless points. If it were any other cultivator, they would definitely shake their head at this time. What a joke, not to mention whether they were willing to give up a few boundless points. It was a big problem whether they had so much merit. Even if they had the intention, there was no way to make merit out of thin air. Only a guy like Yang Chen, who made people speechless, was qualified to make a choice on this issue. However, since Yang Chen already knew very well that his merit would be wasted one day if he didn't use it, was there any need to think more about it? No problem at all. Yang Chen gave his answer almost immediately, and his generous appearance was as if he was spending other people's money. This is a method of controlling fire. You can carefully study it and see if you can completely integrate your true life fire into all of your spiritual power. Li Cheng took out a piece of jade slip and handed it over easily. Chapter 1820. When it came to fire control, Yang Chen asked himself that his technique was no less inferior to any cultivator in the mortal spiritual world, But only in front of Li Cheng did he dare not have this idea. Although Yang Chun had collected enough fire seeds to achieve the yin-yang heaven-burning fire, and although Yang Chun had reached the dream of any fire cultivator, when Li Cheng took out this piece of jade slip, Yang Chun still had a feeling of surprise. Just looking at the white fire seed, Yang Chun knew that what he knew was only superficial at most. What Big Brother Li Cheng took out was definitely a good thing that could make all the cultivators in the world, including the guys in the immortal world, crazy. Perhaps this time recultivation was really a great opportunity for himself. But you have to think about it comprehensively. Otherwise, when you want to have double cultivation with your sister-in-law, it will be a big trouble. Li Cheng had to remind Yang Chun, who was already excited, lest he get carried away. Li Cheng said this in a joking tone, and the women had already left shyly. They all knew very well that Li Cheng had helped Yang Chun find a way, so the rest was naturally no longer a problem. Yang Chun still did not start cultivating, and once again entered the kind of thinking process similar to meditation. Fortunately, even if Yang Chun was just a mortal, after eating the Mare Accumulation Marrow pill, his body would only be nourished to the peak, and there would be no problems, so there was no need to worry at all. Getting the jade slip of the fire control technique given by Li Cheng, Yang Chun was simply like getting a treasure. Li Cheng had already considered the possibilities and even gave a high price to pay, which showed that as long as it could be successful, the effect would definitely be worth the price. It was not surprising that Li Cheng had not tried it himself. He was also a master of a single attribute, and naturally would not use such a method. Not everyone was as abnormal as Yang Chun, with yin and yang 5 elements attributes, and all of them were full value. After thoroughly reading the jade slip given by Li Cheng, Yang Chun began to ponder in his heart the techniques that Yang Chun had never seen before and had never thought of. It had to be said that this jade slip was an eye-opener for Yang Chun. He used to think that he was an absolute genius in controlling fire, but after seeing this technique, he realized that he was just a frog at the bottom of a well. At least before this, Yang Chun had never thought that the natal true fire could be directly integrated into his spiritual power. Even in his previous life, when Yang Chun reached the zenith heaven golden immortal realm, he had never come into contact with such profound things. Perhaps it was a realm that could only be achieved when one reached the 10,000 tribulation true immortal level. In his previous life, Yang Chun was essentially a stray dog and had no chance at all. Now he had the hope of reaching such a high starting point at the very beginning of his cultivation. Just thinking about it made him excited. For ordinary human cultivators, it was impossible for them to have such conditions. Everything else aside, just the life-bound primary flame alone was something that they could not find anywhere else. Even if there was, without the support of spiritual power, rashly touching the fire seed was courting death. There were some guys in the monster clan who had the life-bound demon fire, but they could only control it by instinct. How could they have such a level of fire control when their spiritual wisdom was not opened? That was Yang Chun, who was reborn, had such unique conditions. Moreover, after cultivating to the human immortal realm, he completely abolished his cultivation and started over again. The yin-yang heaven-burning fire was still in his body. The strong body that had been tempered by the yellow turban strongman body refining technique had already adapted to his own life-bound fire seed. Even if there was no spiritual power at most, he could not use the life-bound primary flame, but it would not hurt himself. Under such conditions, if Yang Chun still followed the old set of methods to recultivate, it was estimated that even God could not stand it and would definitely destroy Yang Chun directly when the heaven's retribution came. Bringing the life-bound primary flame into spiritual power, it could not be said that this starting point was too high-end, so that even if he could think of it, he would have to take the risk of death when he implemented it. There were a few immeasurable merits and virtues, just to be able to pull Yang Chun from the edge of death back to the world. Under in-depth research, Yang Chun found that the key to the key was actually the white fire seed given by Big Brother Li Cheng. Although Yang Chun did not know what kind of fire seed it was so far, the possibility described in the fire control chapter seemed to only be realized by the white fire seed. Of course, Li Cheng later reminded Yang Chen to pay attention to it. At least in the future, he would have a double cultivation with his wives and concubines, and he needed to consider the impact on them. However, that still depended on his own control of the life-bound fire seed, so he did not have to worry too much. For a long time, Yang Chen did not mean to start cultivating. He had been thinking about all kinds of possibilities in his mind over and over again, simulating them, striving to be perfect. This thought went on for several years. During this period of time, the Murong sisters had almost opened the seal. The Murong sisters, who had the profound immortal-level spiritual awareness cultivation base, had spent decades working together, which was longer than any of the previous Yang Chen and Gao Yu, and the consumption of spiritual awareness was hundreds of times more than them. The seal formation was finally completely opened at a certain moment, and at the moment of opening, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness was keenly aware of the incredible fluctuations in the ground where they were located. In that instant, the entire trial ground, which had a radius of 1,000,000 miles, shook violently. The vibration was very slight, and if one did not pay attention, they would only think that it was a vibration caused by some powerful monster beast or master in the surrounding area. But Yang Chen and Li Cheng both explored directly to the depths of tens of thousands of miles underground. At that moment, the entire trial ground was shaking. An unimaginably huge existence was waking up from the state of the seal. After sensing the movement of the huge existence, Yang Chen and Li Cheng retracted their spiritual awareness at the same time, and then began to wait slowly, waiting to see what kind of peerless master the Murong sisters had released. After the vibration, it was calm for a long time, and there was no movement at all. Just when the girls thought that there was a problem, the Murong sisters still maintained their sitting posture, and a smile appeared on their faces. A wisp of translucent black line, so subtle that it was almost undetectable, quietly sprang out from the ground, and then flew to the top of Murong Han's head, and then turned into one of Murong Han's black hair, as if it had never appeared before. Only Yang Chen and Li Cheng saw the wisp of black line, and both of their faces showed a smile almost at the same time. Although no aura leaked out, there seemed to be only one possibility in this situation, and that was a dragon. Chapter 1821. The dragon could be big or small. It could rise or hide. When it was big, it could spit out mist. When it was small, it could hide. When it rose, it could soar in the universe. And when it was hidden, it could lurk in the waves. Only such a magical creature could match the situation that Yang Chen and Li Cheng had speculated and observed before. When it was big, this trial ground seemed to be on its body for millions of miles. But when it was small, it instantly turned into a hair and hid on the top of Murong Han's head, and no one could find it. The concealment method that the Earth Dragon was proud of was simply useless in front of this dragon. At least so far, Yang Chen had not found any trace of the dragon except for the scene he saw at the beginning. It was obviously not suitable to ask the Murong sisters anything at this time. When Yang Chen was about to take everyone back to the Dragon Palace and then prepare to go home, Li Cheng suddenly smiled on his face. "I really don't know where your luck came from." Li Cheng didn't bother explaining. Instead, his figure flashed, and he disappeared from where he stood. After a long time, Li Cheng's figure appeared again, and the joy on his face could not be hidden. He threw something in his hand to Yang Chen and then waved, "Let's go." No one knew what the stone was. Even Yang Chen was confused. But when he received it, he immediately felt the ecstasy of Shao Tian in the Dragon Palace. With a move in his heart, Yang Chen thought about the situation just now and seemed to understand what this thing was. Everyone had long known that after the Murong sisters unlocked the seal, it must be the time to leave. At this time, Li Cheng said that he would leave immediately, and no one was surprised. Yang Chen and the women returned directly to the Dragon Palace, and the Dragon Palace was carried by Li Cheng and left quickly. This was the edge of the trial ground, and they casually found an exit that was controlled by the sect and easily left the trial ground. When entering the trial ground, it was checked heavily, but when coming out, it was not so troublesome. Basically, it could be said that they let Li Cheng go without looking. To be honest, it was really beyond Yang Chun and Li Cheng's expectations to be able to so easily undo the biggest seal without causing too much of a commotion. But this was even better. He didn't have to worry about getting rich in silence. It was not until they left the trial place and set foot on the way back to Chunyang Palace that the girls began to ask one after another what kind of masters the Murong sisters were this time. Apart from Zhou Xianying, all the girls had unsealed a Grand Supreme Mystic Immortal expert, so they were all experienced. But this time, no one could see what kind of expert the Murong sisters had unsealed. All the girls' curiosity had been raised to the highest. This is it. When Murong Han saw that her elder sister Gao Yu had also spoken, she did not dare to neglect. She hurriedly took off the black thread hidden in her hair and showed it to the girls. Is alive? Before the women could see what it was, Yang Chun had already asked. This time, it was Murong Yin who shook her head and answered before her sister Murong Han could. A puppet that has been refined. What level of cultivation? This was what the girls were more interested in. Sun Qingxue stared at the extremely thin black thread for a long time before asking. It might have the cultivation of a golden immortal. The one who answered was Murong Han, but when she answered, it was obvious that she did not have much confidence. We also don't know what a golden immortal should look like. As she said that, she looked at her husband. Yang Chun was overjoyed. He reached out to take the black thread and placed it flat on his palm. Then, he gestured for the Murong sisters to control it slightly. In the blink of an eye, the black thread that was originally as thin as a hair became as thick as a chopstick. At this time, everyone could see its specific shape. It had scales and claws. Coupled with the very obvious dragon head in front, the girls immediately recognized its origin. All of them let out a low cry of surprise. After careful observation for a while, Yang Chun finally confirmed that this dragon puppet really had the strength of a golden immortal, as Murong Yin had said. It had even reached the level of a middle-stage golden immortal. However, when he realized this, Yang Chun's first reaction was not one of joy. Instead, he felt his scalp tighten. What kind of technique did the Zhao family's ancestor possess to be able to directly capture a real dragon and refine it into a puppet? Furthermore, it even had the strength of a middle-stage golden immortal. If this was the Zhao family's hidden power in the spiritual realm, then the Zhao family was simply too terrifying. This was a giant dragon of the earth element. However, it was now a complete puppet. After the Murong sisters had unsealed it, it was now completely obedient to their orders. However, even one or two of the Murong sisters could not make this dragon puppet move freely. The 5 of them would need to work together to do so. After all, this was a golden immortal puppet. The 5 of them alone would not be able to handle it. As for how the Zhao family had managed to cultivate this dragon puppet to the level of a golden immortal, Yang Chun had no idea. He could only make a conclusion based on the current situation and the Xian immortal experts who had unsealed it. It was because it had been sealed underground for many years and had been nourished by countless spirit veins for countless years. Whether it was in the mortal world or the spiritual realm, the Zhao family had always been as generous as ever. In the mortal world, there was a 4th-stage Earth Immortal Black Tortoise that surpassed the mortal world's Mahayana stage by 2 great realms. In the spiritual realm, there was a middle-stage Golden Immortal Dragon Puppet that surpassed the Heaven Immortal stage by 2 great realms. According to common sense, with such strength, the Zhao family should at least be a famous and powerful family, even if they did not dominate the world. However, in his previous life, Yang Chun had never heard of the Zhao family. In this life, he only knew about the existence of the Zhao family by chance. This Zhao family was really unfathomable. He did not know how many secret arrangements were hidden in the unknown. At least at this moment, Yang Chun's vigilance was unprecedentedly high. Husband, what was the stone that Brother Li Chun gave you? Why did you say that you were lucky? Sun Qingxue waited for everyone to quiet down before she changed the topic and asked Yang Chun. This question was basically asked on behalf of the other women. Everyone had been curious for a long time, but Yang Chun had not explained it, so they refrained from talking too much. Now that Sun Qingxue took the initiative to jump out Everyone was happy to listen to Yang Chen's explanation. You should be able to guess it, Yang Chen replied with a smile. Although this is just a dragon puppet, before it is refined into a puppet, there is always a place to stay. This is the Dragon Palace. Shi Shan was smart and instantly understood Yang Chen's meaning, and immediately said in surprise, "Yes, the Dragon Palace." Yang Chen nodded with a smile and took out the stone. Xiao Tian had been waiting impatiently for a long time. He rushed up directly and bit the stone Dragon Palace in his mouth, not letting go. Chapter 1822. Yang Chen released his hand, and the stone immediately fell into Xiao Tian's mouth. Then, Xiao Tian began to work regardless of anything. Boom! Everyone only felt that the palace they were in shook a little, and then they saw another equally shocking palace next to the Water and Fire Dragon Palace. However, this palace was khaki. The color was different, and the attribute was naturally different from the current Water and Fire Dragon Palace. It was of the Earth attribute, which was consistent with the attribute of the dragon puppet. This was very easy to understand. Maybe it was because the Dragon Clan had the same hobby. Even the style of the Dragon Palace they built looked not much different. Xiao Tian was happily controlling the Earth Dragon Palace to the side of the Dragon Tower. Xiao Tian still had a lot of things to do next. The Earth Dragon Palace would also be incorporated into the entire Dragon Palace system, refining and merging it, and the square in front of the Dragon Palace would be refined and merged together. Just these alone would not be a matter of 180 years. Aling by go pick a room you like. As soon as the Dragon Palace landed, Yang Chen reminded Gong Sunling and Murong Bai. Both of them were of the Earth attribute, and this Earth attribute Dragon Palace was just right for them. "Husband, will there be any trouble in the Dragon Palace?" Gao Yu asked worriedly as she thought about many things. The origin of this dragon puppet was still unknown, but it was a fact that it fell into the hands of the Murong sisters. Once the Dragon Clan knew about it, it would not be an easy thing to vent their anger on the Murong sisters. The same was true for the Dragon Palace. Yang Chen could not become the public enemy of the Dragon Clan, right? Don't worry, I will call A.O. Lai to let him know about these things. Yang Chen gave Gao Yu a relaxed smile and motioned for her to relax. The good karma formed with A.O. Lai in the past was really infinitely useful. At least the possible trouble in front of them, with A.O. Lai, everything could be eliminated before it happened. There was another thing that made Yang Chen even happier. That was, once A.O. Lai saw the current dragon puppet, he would definitely regard the Zhao family as a mortal enemy. No one dared to treat the Dragon Clan like this. Even a guy like Wang Dongzhu had found the body of a Dragon Clan with great difficulty, yet he still had to be secretive, as if he was afraid that others would find out. The Zhao family had actually refined an Earth Dragon as a puppet. Furthermore, they were plotting something big. Yang Chen didn't even need to instigate anything. As long as he told the truth, he would be able to push the Zhao family to the opposite side of the Dragon Clan. He believed that the experts of the Dragon Clan in the Immortal world would be happy to hear this news. The girls knew about A.O. Lai and understood why Yang Chen wasn't worried. After completely relieved, everyone became excited and ran to the new Dragon Palace to see if there were any rooms they liked and see if they could get some good stuff from it. While the Murong sisters were familiarizing themselves with this brand new gold Immortal Dragon puppet, Yang Chen began to slowly cultivate his brand new Heavenly Dipper, Earthly Fiend, Yin Yang 5 Elements Merit and Virtue Scripture. This was the new name that Yang Chen gave to his brand new cultivation method. Then, from this long name, Yang Chen also realized that he had made a mistake when he ridiculed some cultivation method names for being long and meaningless. It was still a mouthful. As a last resort, Yang Chen gave it an abbreviated name, which was Golden Body Scripture, so that it would not be troublesome to say it in the future. Li Cheng rushed very quickly. After Yang Chen consolidated his foundation and entered the foundation establishment realm, Li Cheng rushed back to Chunyang Palace. It only took him 2 months. Outside the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace, Li Cheng stopped and called Yang Chen out of the Dragon Palace. There's not much time left. Get ready early. In the midst of the bafflement of the girls, Li Cheng said something inexplicable to Yang Chen. What made the girls most puzzled was that Yang Chun actually understood this inexplicable sentence. How long will it take to leave Chunyang Palace? Yang Chun asked very seriously. The girls next to him wanted to ask what it meant, but at this time, no one made a sound to disturb him. They just listened quietly. 10 years. Li Chung answered resolutely and with great certainty. It's only 10 years at most. It won't be too long. If we hurry up, there's still time to set it up. Yang Chun nodded and asked no more. Li Chung also tacitly didn't say much. He just said goodbye to Yang Chun. I should go too. I have to make some preparations in other places. Ling, prepare some wine and dishes to see Big Brother off. Yang Chun didn't ask what Li Chung was going to do. He just told Gong Sunling and the others. Li Chung and Yang Chun were so unpredictable that the girls had been used to it over the years. They knew that there were some things that they shouldn't know. After preparing everything, everyone came up and toasted Li Chung. They simply said some blessings and did not mention anything else. After eating and drinking, Li Chung did not forget to bring the good wine brewed by his son Qing Xue and some new tea made by Shi Shan. Then he laughed and left. Watching Li Chung go away, Yang Chun didn't know what expression was on his face, a little joy, a little regret, and so on. Back at Chunyang Palace, Yang Chun naturally met the head of the palace and the elders in the first place. When everyone saw Yang Chun and saw his current state, they all stood up in shock. What's the matter? How can your cultivation be like this? Wang Yong was the first to run up and pulled Yang Chun and began to check him up and down. The head of the palace and several other elders were also shocked, but they didn't do it like Wang Yong. Karma, this disciple got a blessing in disguise. I need to recultivate it. Yang Chun didn't want to explain too much, and he couldn't explain the exit of the monster bee space to the head of the palace. He could only vaguely say it's good for this disciple. Don't worry. Yang Chun said it easily, but the elders did not dare to take it lightly. Yang Chun could now be said to be the pillar of Chunyang Palace. There must be no trouble. It was only after Wang Yong found that even Gao Yu and the girls were not so worried that he was completely relieved. It seemed that this was really Yang Chun's good fortune. There were some things that couldn't be said clearly, but Yang Chun could arrange to do it. For example, the matter of the new Immortal's Cave in Chunyang Palace could be put on the agenda. The Immortal's Cave of the Cicadier was in the hands of Zhou Xianying. Now Zhou Xianying no longer needed to use 3 fairy immortal masters to practice her zither skills. The Immortal's Cave without an exit was not much use in her hands. Zhou Xianying directly handed it over to Yang Chun. The Zhao family manor and the Immortal's Cave of the Cicadier, Yang Chun handed them over to the Earth Dragon. Let swallow them in one gulp, and then quickly refine them according to a refining method that Yang Chun gave to the Earth Dragon. After the two were combined into one, it could be simply used as a safe haven for Chunyang Palace, and there was no need to worry about having no way out. After arranging for the Earth Dragon to refine the Immortal's Cave, Yang Chun immediately let Zhou Xianying use her whole body to make a few special techniques in Chunyang Palace, and then began to wait quietly.